Hey Nick, my mom says you're satanic and she loves Israel. What can I do to change her mind? Base Kale sent $150. No message.
Thank you for the big super chat. I appreciate it.
Stalin.
How can I convert my boomer parents? My mom loves Israel. How do I, like, what? Am I a robot? Am I Chat GPT? You have like millions of people asking simultaneously, like, hey, Chat GPT. Hey, Guac, is this true? Hey, Guac, is this true? Hey, Guac, how do I convince my mom to be... Shut up, bro. That's what the show is about. This show is an informational resource that teaches you about these topics. It's like, this would be like if I was putting on a live demonstration about cars every day. Okay, today we're going to change the oil. Today we're going to change a tire. And then in the end of the show, you said, hey, how do I teach my mom how to fix a flat tire? That's what this show's about. That's what the show's about. The show is me explaining and breaking these things down to you so you have the information. And then you ask, how do I convince them? The show is me convincing you. This show is me convincing you. Take the show, use it to, like, Goyim are not people. Like, okay, Goyim, dude, when Goyim say that they're people, brother, Goyim are not people. Sorry, but you know, as much as I have my disagreements with the Jews, they are right about one thing. Goyim are not people. Okay, they're not. But we still have to care for them. We still have to take care of them. Goyim are not. Yo, Barry Weiss, high five. Goyim are not people. So true, Queen, and I say, and it's so true, and I say it all the time. Goyim are not people. Me and Ben Shapiro. Yo, Ben Shapiro, down low, up top. So fucking true, King. Cheers to that. I get why Matt Walsh does it now. Clink, clink. Oh, man, yeah, that's brutal.
Note Indy 12 cents, $75. We should all start buying Boomer's 1950s classics, which are depreciating in price, and drive them around, showcasing American heritage and beauty for American First Movement, just like the Angelinos in LA Lowrider movement. Thoughts, Lowell?
Then they said Goyim are people. Yeah, what if we, and then what, dude? Then everybody clapped. What if we all bought Twad cars? Fuck you, dude. Like, straight up, fuck you to death. I would rape you to death. No offense. That's got to be the dumbest super chat I've ever seen. That takes the prize. And what if we all started talking like this? We all started talking like greasers. We all had a toothpick. And we had said, hey, and it's like the 50s. Fuck you, dude. Like, fuck you. If the movement were in the hands of people like you, we would go straight to hell. Like, and God would be, it would be a mercy. It would be a fucking mercy. The ground would open up and hell would swallow us all, and we would be grateful.
White Suburban Roy % 20.
The world you would create.
White Suburban Roy % $20.
What if we wore classic American clothes and drove American cars? And yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe Goyim aren't people. Maybe Ben Shapiro. Like, the more that I listen to super chats, the more I'm like, they're right. Like, the Jews are right. The more I listen to super chats, it's like, brother, we have like a mainstream audience now. The audience used to be small and like very dedicated and loyal and hardcore. Now we have this like huge mainstream audience and we're getting people that just say the craziest shit. And you're like, wow, you know what? It's like, man, oh man. Oh, if you're not a groiper, at the age of 18, you have no heart. If you're not a Zionist before age 35, I'm not going to complete that, but it's like, damn, you're like, we're really out here. Niggas is really out here.
I work for the government in Canada.
All our senses are limited. So, with these limited senses, we naturally are seeing through a very narrow kind of tube or very narrow slit in the total reality there is. Now, as you're evolving, what happens is that slit opens up more and more and more. So you see more and more of that reality, and we assume that we see different realities. They're not very different realities, but rather a very extended, broad view of one very large reality. The Bible mentions maybe 4 to 6 colors maximum.
Yeah.
That is what people saw just a bare maybe 4,000 years ago. Nowadays, we see hundreds and thousands of colors. That is, our visual system has evolved. Let me draw what is called a bell curve, which looks somehow like this. This bell curve gives us a good picture of where most of the population is. That is what typifies a population. We can use this diagram also to describe evolution. The bulk of the population today is this intelligent, more or less intelligent biped, all right? And with a vertical spine, and who pushes the buttons on TV and drives a car, etc., etc. Now, there is some backthrow. That is, there are some people here in this area, very few people who are still gorilla-like. That is, they are hairy. They beat their chest when they see their neighbors and a few other things. And then we have other people who are here in this corner, very few of them, who are very highly developed, because we say that evolution is now pushing mankind in this direction, away from the gorilla types towards the very highly evolved people. At this point, we're here. What's going to happen maybe 1 million years from now, 500,000 years from now? This curve is going to shift. It's going to shift like this. That is, the bulk of the population will be very, very highly evolved. We have gone away altogether from the gorilla types, no more gorillas. And what we have here now is the average man is now the retarded person in evolutionary terms. The bulk of the population is extremely, very, very highly evolved. And the cutting edge of evolution here, these are very, very highly evolved people. We can't even imagine what kind of person that will be. He may not have a physical body at all. What's the habitat, so to speak, of this group here? Well, you just go out and you find them. They're all over the place. The habitat of this group here, what do you think? Where do you think you find these people here? Hey?
I suspect that you would find them in universities. You'd find the people who are very bright, people who are in the leading edge of professions. That kind of thing. I mean, it's an intellectual thing.
Well, I suggest that you find them in mental hospitals, in nut houses. And the reason for that is that these people, they live in a different reality, in a reality which is very changed, and few of them are adapted to live in this reality, so naturally they can't function very well. So the only safe place, only good place for them would be the mental hospital, unless they can integrate their different view of reality with their daily lives. Now, if they can integrate it, then we have people like Newton, like Darwin, like Faraday. These are the so-called geniuses.
She made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. She said, "Do you come from a land down under, where women glow and men wonder?"
Your idol is basically a crackhead.
What the?
John Zerka. I mean, that's who you're idolizing right now. John Zerka, the cocaine crusader.
Jord, why do you promote this shit? Jord, why do you promote this slop? Jord, it's so unhealthy, it's so narcissistic, it's so vain. Jord. I swear to God, the Zoomers were created by the gods as an absurdist joke to test me, to test my patience. I promote it because there is something transcendental and divine about beauty. I promote it because striving to be better as a man is important. It's also fucking funny. And Clav has a stellium in Sagittarius. Quick stream this evening, boys. Won't be a long one. I just want to talk to you about psychic defense, self-defense, which I guess will involve explaining a little bit about psychic attack. And in order to do this, based on the success and the positive response to last week's stream, where Richard and I discussed the work of Dion Fortune and her past life memories of Atlantis, I thought I would introduce you to probably the best introductory texts to Dion Fortune, and perhaps one of the best introductory texts to the occult in general, in the form of Dion Fortune's Psychic Self-Defense. But to get there, I'm going to have to explain a little bit, I guess, about the nature of like what I mean, I guess, by the word psychic and why it's so important. I'm not going to do the whole thing of like convincing you that psychics are real. You've either joined the Black Lodge at this point and kind of been initiated and you get it, or you haven't. And I'm not even going to try and force that on people. Some people need atheism and materialism as like a cope. It's like a self-defense mechanism, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And some people are safe in their little boxes of reality. I don't want to crush that. But for those of you who are already red-pilled on this and who know that like psychics are real, this will be very interesting and perhaps useful information. Man, this mic just won't leave me alone. It's almost like there's a poltergeist in the room. You know what I mean? Doesn't Sam Hyde have a bit about mic arms and why mic arms suck so badly? Put an emoji in the chat if you can hear me, obviously. No, you're more than welcome, man. You're more than welcome. But I know it's Thanksgiving at the moment, so I'm not expecting like an amazingly large viewership for the stream this evening. I think 90% all in of my audience are in like North America, 70% in Canada, 20% in Canada, 70% in the US. So I imagine most of you will be with your families, but perhaps those of you who are isolated, who are atomized, who are like alone right now, who are particularly vulnerable to psychic attack right now, just being honest, all things considered, perhaps you really do need to hear this. Perhaps this is an appropriate time for this stream. Holy shit, I just saw the hair. That's wild. Because we are reaching Austin Osman Spare levels of fucking bad haircut. But it's cool. Look, boys, the only way out is through. And indeed, Clav is a genius. You can hear more about that on the previous couple of streams. Where are you guys at on psychic? What do you think I mean by psychic? Do you have a way of explaining it, a succinct way of explaining it that doesn't involve you dumping a fucking paragraph in the comments? Like, do you know what I mean when I say psychic? Do you think I'm insane for believing that there are certain people in the population who have capabilities, capacity, more higher evolved, capabilities, I guess, have certain can perform certain functions or have certain extrasensory abilities, things like clairsentience, clairvoyance? Do you think I'm retarded for believing in this, or do you think this is just something that people have always believed in, and it's only now really that we're in a very materialist, very atheist, very narrow-minded world that kind of doesn't admit to these things? Let me see. Psychic defense from what and with what? More demons? Question mark. Well, that would depend entirely on what you think a demon is. But let's just take the angelology out of it for like 5 minutes and assume that your mind is plastic and extremely vulnerable to suggestion. You're suggested to 1,000 times a day about tens of thousands of different things, options, choices, bargains, propositions. You spend as much time online as I do, then you're going to be propositioned all the time by like thumbnails and whatever. Your mind is extremely suggestible. And the crazy thing about suggestibility is the more you think that you aren't suggestible, the more you think your mind is an impenetrable fortress, like incapable of psychic, like of being vulnerable to psychic attack, the more likely you are to get psyoped. The more you think that you're like well defended and safeguarded against these things, the more that they have a tendency to creep up on you. But we'll get into it. I don't want you guys to hear it necessarily from me. I want you to hear it from Dion Fortune, and I'm particularly interested in what your opinion is. Like, do you think there are? I mean, it's really just a yes or no question. Thank you for the eyes. Is that what you need? You need me to go closer? Does it sound quiet? Okay, well, you just want this is just a request to you because you're fapping right now, Richard, right? That's what it is. It's fine. It's for each to their own. W. Richard Carr. Look at this. Look. Mind of its own. I swear to God. Okay, intuition. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Valentinus. Yeah. But then I guess it's just a circular thing, isn't it? It's just the little kid in the class being like, why? What? Yeah, okay. Psychics are people with high intuition. Yep, check. Good. Right. What do we mean by intuition? What is it to intuit something versus to know something? How is intuition different from like regular run-of-the-mill knowledge, I guess, is my question. And this guy seems to be hinting at it, seems to be getting at it. We are, in effect, talking about unseen forces. The reason I want to show you Dion Fortune this evening, before anything else, when it comes to this type of subject matter, is that she is a materialist up to a point. She was very much into psychology. She was very much into depth psychology, into the work of Freud, into the work of Jung. And most of the time, she explains things away using a materialist, atheist lens. But she also concedes that there are sometimes other forces at play. There are other realms in which these kind of things can act on. You'll see when we get into it. It's not so cut and dry. For Dion Fortune, there are 3 or 4 main types of psychic attack, which are outlined in this book. And again, you really need to understand psychic attacks if you hope to defend against them. But the first type that you need to be aware of is the unconscious psychic attack. This is the one that is performed on you and that you perform on others constantly, all of the time, not knowing, unknowingly. This is your classic apotropaic evil eye. This is throwing shade at someone and actually causing them harm with your negative energy and intention. And of course, this stuff is minimal. It happens all the time. But there is another type too. There is the conscious type. There is the focused type. There is the malefic witch brewing a potion with intent, right? With intent to harm you or to hurt you. That's we would refer this would be referred to as conscious magical attack, essentially. And this is often a lot more dangerous and a lot more pernicious because it involves human will. This is doing a ritual. This is getting the voodoo. This isn't just the apotropaic evil eye. This is getting the voodoo doll and sticking little needles into it. Energetically, morally speaking, if you really believe that you intend to cause somebody harm by creating an effigy of them and then sticking needles into it to try and cause it damage, what is actually the moral difference between that and stabbing someone when you think about it? The third type of psychic attack that Dion Fortune refers to in the book is psychic vampirism. This is a very real phenomenon. There are people in the chat, I imagine, trying to psychically vampirize right now. In fact, psychic vampirism is incredibly common and seemingly increasingly common today. She outlines it beautifully in the book. I believe it's chapter 5 of the book that you can find about where she addresses psychic vampirism. And we will get into it. I'm going to read the book. I'm not going to read all of the book to you, obviously. You can actually find audiobook copies of this strewn around the internet. I think there's even a PDF available on the archive, on the Internet Archive. This is not a text that's like difficult to get hold of. It's a very accessible text, not just in that way, in the way of like, a normie can read this. And you can get about halfway through it without really having your belief systems challenged. Dion Fortune, very much, as we discussed on the stream with Richard last week, very much the good girl of occultism. Looks at everything through a kind of Christian framework, which is nice. She also addresses where Christianity is wrong and where Christianity is used to suppress people mentally and oppress people and control people. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here about hauntings and ghosts and how you can create an elemental, like an imaginary spirit in your mind and send it out into the world to do fuckery, to like attack your enemies and servitors and such. It's really, really fucking interesting. I would advise anybody, and of course I will put a copy in the Black Lodge, in the library, in the Black Lodge. But guys, a little bit of housekeeping up front. You're not all getting in the Black Lodge anymore, right? I offered it initially as a perk, like for all members. Now the perk is you can apply to join if you want. It's pretty much a closed community. Everybody knows everybody in there. It's kind of weird if you come in as this faceless lurker and don't want to participate and don't actively and actually want to learn. But for those of you who are already in there, I'll put a PDF after this stream of Dion Fortune's Psychic Self-Defense in the chat, so you can refer to it. But there's heaps of good stuff in there. The three main things you want to be aware of before we're going into this are those three types of attacks. The fact that you can attack somebody unconsciously, apotropeically, the fact that you can attack somebody consciously, and often this is much more devastating. And then the fact that there are literal people out there who are what can only be described as psychic vampires. You will be aware of the kind of people that I'm talking about, the people whose ego needs fuel in order to function. And that fuel is often other people's attention, right? And this can become like a drink. So again, what I love about Dion Fortune is that she's going to explain this stuff to you in a pretty frank, materialist way. I mean, she was somebody who practiced what Austin Osman Spare would refer to as the neither. She really did have one foot in the atheist materialist world and another a foot in the Christian mystic kind of world. And in a way, in order to practice magic or in order to even study occultism, you sort of need this. You sort of need to be able to sit in the mirror when a giant demon with a goat's head appears behind you. You need to be able to sit in the mirror and acknowledge that it's both real and not real at the same time. Dion Fortune is very good at this, very good at writing about magical stuff for an atheist audience, very good at writing about psychological, atheist, scientific stuff for a mystical audience. So I think it's a good place for you guys to start, before you delve into like Crowley or again, like chaos magic. I think I have low-level psychic ESP powers, to be honest. What do you mean by ESP? What do you mean by extrasensory perception? I would love to know more about that. Advertising molests you every day. Precisely. And these would be, and you have to understand, guys, when you refer to advertising, watch that microphone just go up. When you refer to advertising, you are referring mostly to conscious attacks, which makes them extremely pernicious. There is a spectrum that starts with like buy one, get one free. And all of the kind of stuff that you can get access to if you click on the members tab of this channel. I talk about color psychology and how they're using really basic principles to mess you up on a daily basis, all the way through to like actual targeted psyop campaigns designed to socially engineer and change people's behavior, like high magica stuff. None of which you are capable of defending yourself against until you first accept that this stuff is real, until you accept that your brain is very much capable of being psyoped, of being manipulated. And until you've kind of got into stuff like this. But I'll show you what I'm talking about. I just want to thank everybody who's gifting, everybody who's a member and who's remained a member. This is fucking dope, like literally. Dion Fortune was a young woman who, and what's great about this book is it gets into it. You're going to get into the lore of her as a person and the character of her as a person, right? But she was a young woman who had some issues, should we say, some mental health issues. She was very much, for those of you who are familiar with the character of Jack Star, she was very much a bit of a Jack Star in her early 20s, went off the rails somewhat. And for most of her life, she kind of just referred to this as a breakdown, as a nervous breakdown. But when you read her book on psychic self-defense, you realize, oh shit, okay, perhaps she didn't just have a run-of-the-mill episode, like perhaps she was attacked by a witch. I'm trying to think about what you guys need to know before we kick off. The kind of stuff she perhaps isn't going to tell you up front that is quite useful for you to take with you. I know some of you have the attention span of particularly thick goldfish. And so you want the talking points, you want the nuggets, you want the key gemerals of wisdom. So I guess I would say you're most vulnerable to psychic attack and to having your mind molested, as the guy said in the comments, when you are running low on energy, in a literal sense, when you are exhausted, when you are tired. If you're particularly neurotic, if you're a particularly twitchy, tense, flighty, nervous person, these people are often really subject to the whims and the wills of others. Trauma. People who have a lot of trauma and baggage emotionally are also extremely One of the metaphors that Fortune uses often in the book, and it is a metaphor, though I think it really helps to visualize, is the idea of an auric field. The idea that you have some kind of psychic self-defense bubble around you at all times. And it is weakest where you are weakest. If you have back problems, then at your lower back or whatever, there's a hole penetrating your auric field. Again, it's a metaphor. Don't go too deep into it. Although there are some really interesting studies with like electromagnetics and what you can see in terms of imaging when you look at a human being. None of you are going to like this one. This goes very much against the whole Kundalini holding your vril semen retention thing. But Dion Fortune would say that you're very vulnerable to psychic attack if you're sexually repressed. I want to let that one sit with you for a second. You're very vulnerable to psychic attack if you are pent up sexually, if you are chudded out incel who's never had a release for their sexual energy and has not found a way to harness it from within, then you're extremely vulnerable to psychic attack. Likewise, if you are misaligned sexually, that is to say, if you have the sexuality that you're not supposed to have, if you have somebody else's sexuality. What do I mean by this? Well, the astrologer who looks at a lot of natal charts realizes very quickly that some people are actually born gay. Some people are very obviously going to have gay leanings and gay tendencies in life. Some other people are made gay through trauma and actually are not even expressing their own sexuality. They're expressing some warped version of somebody else's sexuality. If you are one of those people, if you are sexually misaligned, if you are not actually sexually living out your true, well, there's sex and sexuality is one of the main ways that you can be penetrated, psychically speaking, if that makes sense. If you're isolated, if you're alone, if you're atomized, that's why it's a really good idea for me to do this kind of stream at this time of year. That makes you vulnerable. And if you've been dabbling in occult practices that you are not protected against, if you've been fucking around with the occult and you don't know what you're doing, this can also make you extremely vulnerable to psychic attack. Alcohol, drugs, particularly stimulants. Aleister Crowley wrote a fantastic essay on cocaine. I would recommend that you all read it. But particularly stimulants make you vulnerable to psychic attack. If you are a morally or emotionally unstable person, you can get psyoped. Last I was aware, there was a bit about not letting energy stagnate in and out. Correct. Absolutely correct. And that's what that is, right? When the libido energy gets kind of like bottled up in a person, it turns stale, it turns toxic. The Buddhists and in the East and in some very Gnostic, esoteric Christian Western occult schools, there is this idea of Kundalini energy. There is this idea of semen retention, that you can harness this and you can use it to transcend. But if you don't direct that energy into something, art, creativity, a muse, some kind of spiritual practice, you're really fucking doing yourself a disservice. Not just spiritually speaking. I mean, it's going to fuck your life up in myriad ways, but particularly from a psychic defense perspective. Hello, friend. And yes, exactly correct. I realize that a lot of people are going to be throwing me evil eyes, and the black is there to ward off, to absorb, and to take in the psychic like a sponge. I am indeed vampire maxing. Magic to me is like understanding the mind and how the world is a mind and matter. Couldn't agree more. Quite a profound comment from you, Coco. Shalom. Yeah, shalom. Neuroticism will ruin your life. Well, it will and it won't. Sometimes it's good to be obsessive and compulsive. If you want to learn something very quickly, if you want to learn a new language, perhaps extremely fast, then there's no better loadout to have than the neurotic, obsessive, compulsive person who like dedicates himself to something all day, right? But I know what you mean. I think the worst type of neuroses are those that are hidden from us, when we're neurotic about things and we're not aware of them. And that, I guess, is what Dion Fortune would say, right? Like the person who is well integrated is the expression that she would use. The person who acknowledges their own faults, looks at them, can understand them, and can work with them as opposed to against them. A well integrated person is less vulnerable to psychic attack than a poorly integrated person. Let's see. What types of energies are there? She's going to go into all of this kind of stuff. And yes, porn is very, very psychically draining. When you masturbate to a woman, what you are in essence doing is sending her energy. Be careful about where you put this energy and who you choose to give this psychic energy to, even if you're somebody who has an extremely high libido and lots of psychic energy. But yeah, I'll try and get into the bit actually where she talks about that kind of stuff. Give me a second. Share screen, Dion Fortune, psychic self-defense. Like I say, guys, this is available in all good online repositories. Just some of the names of the chapters here, right? 1, signs of psychic attack. 2, analysis of the nature of psychic attack. 3, a case of modern witchcraft. And she really does go all out. Dion Fortune, very much a fan of like how anecdotal evidence is actually superior to bullshit statistics. And she goes into bringing, but she doesn't believe in like secondhand, third-hand anecdotal evidence. It's straight from the horse's mouth with Dion Fortune. You're gonna get the real shit. And projection of the etheric body, vampirism, hauntings. The distinction between objective psychic attack and subjective psychic disturbance. All very, very important stuff to understand. And like I said, this isn't like a tome. This isn't like it's 100 pages. You could really crack this out in an afternoon if you wanted to. I'm not going to read it all to you, but I'm going to use it as a jumping off point so that in future we can discuss Dion Fortune more. Once I've got through the preface and perhaps the first chapter, I'll open the phones up. You guys can call in and tell me about your own, psychic phenomenon that has happened to you. But yeah, I guess before, like, the last thing I really want to say is that inside this, there are a lot of different techniques that you can take and that you can utilize for your own benefit. She talks greatly about telepathic suggestion. She talks greatly about projection of emotions, how you can get somebody else to feel the same emotion as you, how you can get a group of people to emotionally resonate with you. She talks a lot about how to employ images or imagery ritualistically. And she talks about how she's basically touching on ideas like memetics before memetics existed. The idea that you can, in almost a contagious way, infect a group of people with a mind virus, right? With a type of thought. All of this stuff is contained within this book, which is why I would highly recommend visiting it in your own time. But alas, we proceed. Preface. Dion Fortune's psychic self-defense. It is with a sense of seriousness of the issues involved that I set myself to the task of writing a book on psychic attack and the best methods of defense against it. The undertaking is beset with pitfalls. It's hardly possible to give practical information on the methods of psychic defense without, at the same time, giving practical information on the methods of psychic attack. It is not without reason that initiates have guarded their secret science behind closed doors. To disclose sufficient to be adequate without disclosing sufficient to be dangerous is my problem. But as so much has already been made known concerning the esoteric teachings, and as the circle of students of the occult is becoming rapidly wider every day, it may well be that time has come now for plain speaking. The task is not of my seeking, but it has come into my hands. I will do my best to discharge it honorably, making available the knowledge that has come to me in the course of many years of experience of the strange byways of the mind which the mystic shares with the lunatic. This knowledge has not been attained without cost, nor, I suspect, will the divulging of it be altogether free from cost either. I have endeavored to avoid, so far as is possible, the use of second-hand material. We all know a person who has a friend who saw a ghost with her own eyes, and that is not of very much use to anybody. But what we need is to have an eyewitness under cross-examination. For this reason, I have not drawn upon the vast literature of the subject for illustrations of my thesis, but I prefer to rely on cases that have come within the range of my own experience and which I have been able to examine. I think I may fairly claim to have practical and not merely theoretical qualifications for this task. My attention was first turned to psychology and subsequently to occultism as the real key to psychology by personal experience of a psychic attack which left me with shattered health for a considerable period. I know for myself the peculiar horror of such an experience, its insidiousness, its potency, and its disastrous effects on mind and body. It is not easy to get people to come forward and bear witness to psychic attacks. Firstly, because they know there is very little likelihood of their being believed, and they will be more likely to earn themselves a reputation for mental unbalance than for anything else. And secondly, because any tampering with the foundation of the personality is an experience of such peculiar and unique horror that the mind shrinks from the contemplations of it, and one cannot talk about it. I am of the opinion that psychic attacks are far more commoner than is generally realized, even by occultists themselves. Certainly, the general public has no conception at all of the sort of things that are done by people who have a knowledge of the powers of the human mind and set to work to exploit them. I am convinced that this factor played a large part in the witch cult and was the real cause of the universal horror and detestation of the witch. These powers have always been known to students of occultism, but nowadays they are known and used by people who would be exceedingly surprised to find out who are their fellow practitioners. Mrs. Eddy, the founder of Christian Science, stumbled upon these methods empirically without ever acquiring any rational knowledge as to their modus operandi. She endeavored to teach them in such a way that could only be used for good, and their power for evil should be concealed, but that she herself was aware of their possibilities if abused is witnessed by the dread of what she called malicious animal magnetism, which shadowed her life. What do you guys know about Eddy and the invention of Christian Science? I actually met a Christian Scientist recently. That was a fucking trip. But we continue. The methods of Christian Science, without its strict discipline and careful organizations, were developed and exploited by the innumerable schools and sects of the New Thought movement. In many of the developments, the religious aspect was lost sight of, and they simply became a method of mental manipulation for purely personal ends, though not necessarily deliberately evil. Their exponents advertised that they would teach the art of salesmanship, of making oneself popular and dominant in society, of attracting the opposite sex, of drawing oneself money and success. The amazing number of these courses advertised shows their popularity. In a recent issue of an American magazine, I counted advertisements for 63 different courses in various forms of mind power. They would not be so popular if they achieved no results at all. Let us consider some of the advertisements and see what they indicate, reading between the lines and drawing our own conclusions. Quote, these are the advertisements she's referencing. Transfer your thoughts to others. Send for a free folder. Telepathy. Mental radio. Quote, troubled? Health? Love? Money? Let me help you. No failures. Instructions being followed. Strictly personal and professional. Careful as a family physician. $5 must accompany inquiry. Money back if not satisfied. Quote, what do you want? Whatever it is, we can help you get it. Just give us a chance by writing for Clouds Dispelled, absolutely free, and you will be delighted. Hypnotism. Would you, quote, hypnotism. Would you possess that strange, mysterious power which charms and fascinates men and women, influences their thoughts, controls their desires, and makes you supreme master of every situation? Life is full of alluring possibilities for those who master the secrets of hypnotic influence. For those who develop their magnetic powers, you can learn at home, cure diseases and bad habits without drugs, win the friendship and love of others, overcome domestic difficulties, give the most thrilling entertainment ever witnessed, and develop a wonderfully magnetic willpower that will enable you to overcome all obstacles to your success. Quote, you can hypnotize people instantly, quick as a flash. Put yourself or anyone else to sleep at an hour of the day or night, or banish pain and suffering. Our free book tells you the secrets of this wonderful science. It explains exactly how you can use this power to better your condition in life. It is enthusiastically endorsed by ministers of the gospel, lawyers, doctors, businessmen, and society women. It benefits everybody. It costs nothing, and we give it away to advertise our institution. It'd still be like that today, TBH. These are a few specimens chosen from among the 63 similar advertisements counted in this single issue of a popular weekly magazine. They are given in extenso, in no way edited, save by omission of addresses. Let us now consider what such advertisements as these signify from the point of view of persons to whom they are not addressed, the persons over whom the reader is presumed to want to acquire power. What will their position should he break the 10th commandment and covet his neighbor's wife or his ox or his ass or any of these other valuables? Supposing the diligent student of these methods wants something he ought not to have. Supposing he is on the shady side of the law, or is nursing a sense of injury and desires to be revenged, or merely loves power for its own sake. What is the fate of the cannon fodder that supplies the student of mind power with the material for his experiments? What does it feel like to be dominated by these methods, and what results may ultimately be obtained by the competent experimenter? So what she's doing here already, you're kind of getting a sense already of like she's a white witch. She doesn't really like the idea that like people can be doing this type of fuckery and messing with each other's mind, but she does at no point concedes that this stuff might work for some people and might actually have efficacy. Let me see here what we got. You have to excuse my piss poor vision. The lead singer of Megadeth claims that he used sex magic on a woman and it worked. He claims that he put a curse on some guy and that he got into a motorcycle accident 2 weeks later. I believe it, but then again, I wouldn't I? No, I completely believe it. And sometimes this stuff really does backfire. This is what I'm saying. Who is most open and vulnerable to some form of psychic attack? People who try and practice magic and don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. And don't respect how powerful their own mind is, quite frankly. Let me give you my own experience, painful though it is. For someone has got to be the first to come forward and uncover these abuses for which they are only able to flourish because of the general failure to realize their significance. As a young girl of 20, we're getting biography pilled now, guys, lock the fuck in. As a young girl of 20, I entered the employment of a woman who I now know must have had a considerable knowledge of occultism obtained during a long residence in India, and concerning which she used to drop hints that I could make nothing of at the time, but which, in the light of later knowledge, I have come to understand. It was her custom to control her staff by means of her knowledge of mind power, and she had a steady succession of the most peculiar breakdowns among the people working under her. I had not been with her for a very long time when she wanted me to give evidence in a lawsuit. She was a woman of violent temper and had dismissed an employee without notice and without wages, and he was suing her for the money due to him. She wanted me to say that his behavior had been such that she was justified in dismissing him. Her method of collecting my evidence was to look into my eyes with a concentrated gaze and say, such and such things happened. Fortunately for all concerned, I had kept a diary and had a day-to-day record of the whole transaction. If it had not been for this, I should have not known where I was. At the end of the interview, I was dazed and exhausted and lay down on my bed in my clothes and slept the sleep of utter exhaustion until the next morning. I suppose I slept for about 15 hours. Soon after this, she wanted my testimony again. She wished to get rid of my immediate superior and wanted to find sufficient grounds to justify her in doing so. She repeated her previous maneuvers, but this time I had not got a diary record to fall back upon. And to my intense surprise, I found myself agreeing with her in a series of entirely baseless charges against the character of a man I had no reason to believe to be otherwise than perfectly straight. The same exhaustion and the same dead sleep descended upon me immediately after this interview and after the preceding one, but an additional symptom now manifested itself. As I walked out of the room at the end of the interview, I had a curious sensation as if my feet were not in place as I expected them to be. Anyone who has walked across a carpet that is bellying up with the underfloor draft will know what I mean. Occultists will recognize it as having to do with the extrusion of the etheric double. The next incident to occur in this curious menage did not concern myself, but another girl, an orphan with considerable means. My employer kept this girl constantly with her and finally persuaded her to put the whole of her capital into schemes. However, trustees descended in wrath, forced my employer to disgorge, and took the girl away with them then and there, leaving all her belongings behind to be packed up and sent on to her afterwards. Another incident followed quick on the heels of this one. There was an elderly woman in the establishment who was slightly minus mentally. A dear old thing, but childlike and eccentric. My employer now turned her attention to her, and we watched the same process of domination beginning. In this case, there were no trustees to interfere, and the poor old lady was being persuaded to take her affairs out of the hands of her brother, who had hitherto managed them, and to commit them to the tender mercies of my employer. My suspicions had by now been thoroughly aroused. That was more than I could bear to see old Auntie rooked, so I took a hand in the game, woke Auntie up to the situation, pushed her belongings into a box, and got her off to her relatives while my employer was away for a brief absence. I had hoped my complicity in the affair would not come to be known, but I was soon disillusioned. My employer's secretary came into my room one night after lights out and warned me that the warden, as we called our employer, had found out who it was that had engineered Auntie's escape, and I had better look out for trouble. Knowing her to be of an exceedingly revengeful nature, I knew that my best refuge was flight, but flight was not altogether easy to achieve. The institution in which I was employed was an educational one, and a term's notice had to be given before leaving. I did not look forward to working out that term under the unchecked control of a spiteful woman, so I watched for an opportunity that could justify me in walking out. With my employer's uncontrolled temper, it was not long to seek. I was up late the following night, packing in preparation for my intended flight, when there came to my room another member of the staff, a girl who seldom spoke, had no friends, and went about her work like an automaton. I never had any dealings with her, and was more than surprised at her visit. It was soon explained, however, quote, "You're going to leave?" she said. I admitted that it was so. Quote, "Then go without seeing the warden. You will not get away if you don't. I have tried several times, and I cannot get away." However, I was young and confident in my untried strength, with no means of gauging forces arrayed against me. And the next morning, dressed for my journey and suitcase in hand, I went down and bearded my formidable employer in her den, determined to tell her what I thought of her and her methods, quite unsuspicious that anything save ordinary knavery and bullying was afoot. I was not allowed to get started with my carefully prepared speech, however. As soon as she learnt I was leaving, she said, "Very well, if you want to go, you shall go. But before you go, you have to admit that you are incompetent and have no self-confidence." To which I replied, still being full of fight, that if I were incompetent, why did she not dismiss me herself? And anyway, I was the product of her own training school, which remark did not naturally improve matters. Then commenced the most extraordinary litany. She resumed her old trick of fixing me with intent gaze and said, "You are incompetent, and you know it. You have no self-confidence, and you've got to admit it." To which I replied, "That's not true. I know my work, and you know it." Now, there was a great deal of doubt that much could be said concerning my competency in my first post at the age of 20. With a great deal of responsibility on my shoulders and newly inducted into a disorganized department, but nothing whatsoever could be said against my self-confidence, except perhaps that I had too much of it. I was quite prepared to rush in where archangels would have hung back in the collar. My employer did not argue or abuse me. She kept on with these two statements, repeated like the responses of a litany. I entered her room at 10 o'clock, and I left at 2. She must have said these two phrases several hundred times. I entered it a strong and healthy girl. I left it a mental and physical wreck, and was ill for 3 years. Some instinct warned me that if I admitted I were incompetent and had no self-confidence, my nerve would be broken, and I would never be good for anything afterwards. And I recognized that this peculiar maneuver on the part of my employer was an act of revenge. Why I did not pursue the obvious remedy of taking refuge in flight, I do not know. But by the time one realizes that something abnormal is toward one on these occasions, one is more or less glamored. And just as the bird before the snake cannot use its wings, so one cannot turn or move away. Gradually, everything began to feel unreal. All I knew was that I had to hold on at all costs the integrity of my soul. Once I agreed to her suggestions, I was done for. And so we went on with the litany. But I was getting near the end of my resources. I had a curious sensation as if my field of vision were narrowing. This, I believe, is a characteristic phenomenon of hysteria. Out of the corners of my eyes, I could see two walls of darkness creeping up on me from either side, as if one stood with one's back to the angle of a screen, and it was slowly being closed upon one. I knew that when these two walls of darkness met, I should be broken. Then a curious thing happened. I distinctly heard an inner voice say, "Pretend you are beaten before you really are, and she will let up the attack, and you will get away." What this voice was, however, I have never known. I immediately followed its advice. With my tongue in cheek, I asked my employer's pardon for everything that I had ever done or should ever do. I promised to remain in my post and to go softly all the days of my life. I remember I went down on my knees to her, and she purred complacently over me, well satisfied with the morning's work, as she had every reason to be. Then she let me go, and I went up to my room and lay down on the bed, but I could not rest until I had written her a letter. What that letter contained, I do not know. As soon as I had written it, I put it where she would get it. I fell into a sort of stupor, and I lay in this state with my mind completely in abeyance until the following evening. That is to say, from 2 o'clock until 1 in the afternoon, or about 8 o'clock the following day. 30 hours. It was a cold spring day with the snow on the ground. A window close to the head of the bed was wide open and the room unheated. I had no covering over me, but I felt neither cold nor hunger. All the processes of the body were in abeyance. I never stirred. Heartbeat and respiration were very slow and continued so for several days. I was found eventually by the housekeeper, who revived me by the simple application of a good shaking and a cold sponge. I was dazed and disinclined to move or even to eat. I was left to lie in bed, my work taking care of itself, the housekeeper coming to look over me from time to time and making no comment on my condition. My employer never showed herself. After about 3 days, my especial friend, who I thought had left the house, learned of my continued presence and came along to see me, an act requiring some courage, for our mutual employer was a formidable antagonist. She asked me what had happened at my interview with the warden, but I couldn't tell her. My mind was blank, and all memory of that interview had gone as if a sponge had been passed over a slate. All I knew was that I was out of the depths of my mind. A most horrible state of fear was rising up and obsessing me. Not fear of anything or person, just plain fear without an object, but none less terrible for that. I lay in bed with all the physical symptoms of intense fear: dry mouth, sweating palms, thumping heart, and a shallow, hasty breathing. My heart was beating so hard that each beat, a loose brass knob on the bedstead rattled. Fortunately for me, my friends saw that something was seriously wrong and sent for my family, who fetched me away. They were exceedingly suspicious. The warden was exceedingly uncomfortable, but no one could prove anything, and so nothing was said. My mind was a blank. I was thoroughly cowed and very exhausted, and my one desire was to get away. I did not recover, however, as had been expected. The intensity of the symptoms wore off, but I continued to be exceedingly easily tired, as if I had been drained of all my vitality. I knew that somewhere in the back of my mind was a hidden memory of a terrible experience, and that I dared not think of it, because if I did, the shock and strain would be so severe that my mind would give way altogether. My chief consolation was that the old school arithmetic book that I used to spend hours upon hours doing simple sums in to keep my mind from racing itself to pieces, wondering what had been done to me and sliding up the walls in memory. Oh, wait, my chief consolation was the old arithmetic book that I used to spend hour upon hour doing simple sums to keep my mind from racing itself to pieces in, wondering what had been done to me and sliding up towards memory, and then shying away from it like a frightened horse. Finally, I gained some measure of peace by coming to the conclusion that I had simply had a breakdown from overwork, and that the whole queer transaction was the fruit of my own imagination. And yet there was a lingering feeling that it was real, and this feeling would not let me rest. About a year after the incident, my health still being poor, I went away to the country to recuperate, and there came across a friend who had been on the spot at the time of my breakdown. It apparently caused a good deal of talk, and I found here one who was not inclined to explain away my experience, but asked rather pertinent questions. Another new friend became interested in my case and hauled me off to the family doctor, who bluntly gave his opinion that I had been hypnotized. It was before the days of psychotherapy, and his ministrations to the mind diseased were not limited to patting me on the head and giving me tonic and bromide. The tonic was useful, but the bromide was not, as it lowered my powers of resistance, and I speedily discarded it, preferring to put up with the discomfort rather than to render myself defenseless. For all the time, I was obsessed by the fear of this strange force that had been applied to me so effectually. For the whole time, I was obsessed by the fear that this strange force, which had been applied to me so effectually, would be applied again. But although I feared this mysterious power, which I now realize was abroad in the world, I cannot tell what a relief it was to me to find that the whole transaction was not a hallucination, but an actual fact that one could rise up and cope with. What are we thinking so far? Lance? Let me just hop in this chat and see this stuff. Man. 6'7". She got caught lacking. She really did. She really, really did. And I don't know whether she cooked herself or whether she got cooked by this lady, but like, isn't it just a wonderful story? It reads like fucking Roald Dahl or some shit. Like, seriously, it's fucking insane. Okay, let's keep going, because I obtained my release from the bondage of this fear by facing the whole situation and determining to find out what exactly had been done to me and how I could protect myself against a repetition of the experience. It was an exceedingly unpleasant process. In fact, the reaction caused by rediscovering the lost memories was only a little less violent than the original one. But I finally succeeded in freeing myself from the hag-ridden condition of fear, although it was a very long time before my physical health became normal. My body was like an electric battery that had been completely discharged. It took a long time to charge up again, and every time it was used before the charging was completed, it ran down again rapidly. For a long time, I had no reserves of energy, and after the least exertion would fall asleep, a dead sleep, at any hour of the day. In the language of occultism, the etheric double had been damaged. This is what I'm referring to as like an auric bubble, right? As a version of yourself that exists on the astral plane and protects you, in theory, from psychic attacks. But listen, this is very important. In the language of occultism, the etheric double had been damaged and leaked prana. It did not become normal until I took initiation into the occult order in which I subsequently trained. Within an hour of the ceremony, I felt a change, and it is only upon the rarest occasions since then, after some psychic injury, that I have had a temporary return of these depleting attacks of exhaustion. I have told this story in detail because it is a useful illustration of the manner in which these little-known powers of the mind can be abused by unscrupulous persons. First-hand experience is of far more value than any amount of illustration from the pages of history, however well authenticated. If such a transaction had taken place during the Middle Ages, the parish priest would have organized a witch hunt. In light of my own experiences, I am not at all surprised that people who had acquired a reputation for the practice of witchcraft were lynched. The methods are so terrible and so intangible. We may think the records of the witch trials are ridiculous, with their tales of wax images melting in front of slow fires, or the crucifying of christened toads, or the reciting of little jingles such as horse hattock to ride. But if we understand the use of mind power, we soon realize that these things were simply aids to concentration. There is no essential difference between sticking pins into a wax image of an enemy and burning candles in front of the wax image of the Virgin. You may think both of these practices are gross superstitions, but you can hardly think that one is real and potent and then deny the reality and potency of the other. These weapons of our warfare are not carnal, may as truly be said of the practitioners of black magic as of the church. My own case belongs more to the realm of psychology than to occultism, the method employed being an application of a hypnotic power to improper ends. I have given it, however, because I am convinced that hypnotic methods are very largely used in black magic, and that telepathic suggestion is the key to a large portion of this phenomena. I cite my own case, painful as it is for me to do so, because an ounce of experience is worth a pound of theory. It was this experience which led me to take up the study of analytical psychology and subsequently of occultism. As soon as I touched the deeper aspects of practical psychology, I watched the dissection of the mind under psychoanalysis. I realized that there was very much more in the mind than could be accounted for by the accepted psychological theories. I saw that we stood in the center of a small circle of light thrown by accurate scientific knowledge, but around us was a vast circumambulate sphere of darkness, and in that darkness, dim shapes were moving. It was in order to understand the hidden aspects of the mind that I originally took up the study of occultism. I've had my full share of the adventures of the path, have known men and women who could indubitably be ranked as adepts, seen phenomena such as no seance room ever known and borne my share in it, taken part in psychic feuds and stood watch to the roster of the occult police force which, under the masters of the Great White Lodge, keeps guard over the nations, each according to its race. I've kept the occult vigil when one dare not sleep while the sun is below the horizon, and hung on desperately, matching my staying power against the attack until the moontides changed and the force of the onslaught blew itself out. And through all these experiences, I was learning to interpret occultism in the light of psychology and psychology in the light of occultism, the one counter-checking and explaining the other. Because of my specialized knowledge, people came to me when occult attacks were suspected, and their experience reinforces and supplements my own. Moreover, there is a considerable literature on the subject to be found in the quarters where one would least expect it, in the accounts of folklore and ethnology, in the state records of the witch trials, and even under the guise of fiction. These independent records by people in no way interested in psychic phenomenon confirm the statements made by those who have experienced occult attacks. On the other hand, we have to distinguish very carefully between psychic experience and subjective hallucination. We have to be sure that the person who complains of a psychic assault is not hearing the reverberation of his own disassociated complexes. The differential diagnosis between hysteria, insanity, and psychic attack is an extremely difficult and delicate operation. For so frequently a case is not clear, more than one element being present, and a severe psychic attack causing a mental breakdown, and a mental breakdown laying its victim open to invasion from the unseen. All these factors have to be borne in mind when investigating an alleged occult attack. It shall be my task in these pages not only to indicate the methods of occult defense, but also to show the methods of differential diagnosis. It is very necessary, with so much occult knowledge about, and people should know an occult attack when they see it. These things are much more common than is generally realized. The recent tragedy in Iona gives point to this assertion. No occultist is under any illusion as to that being death from natural causes. In my own experience, I have known of similar deaths. In my novel, The Secrets of Dr. Taverner, there were presented under the guise of fiction a number of cases illustrative of the hypotheses of occult science. Some of these stories were built up to show the operation of these invisible forces. Others were drawn from actual cases, and some of these were written down rather than written up in order to render them readable to the general public. So based. So much first-hand experience confirmed by independent evidence should not go unregarded, especially since rational explanations are difficult to find save in terms of occult hypotheses. It may be possible to explain away each individual case mentioned in these pages by alleging hallucinations, fraud, hysteria, or just plain lying, but it is not possible to explain the sum total of them in this way. There cannot be so much smoke without some fire. It is not possible that the prestige of the magician in antiquity and the dread of the witch in the Middle Ages could have arisen without some basis in experience. The vaporings of the wise woman would be no more heeded than those of the village idiots if no painful consequences had ever been found to follow upon them. Fear was the motive of these persecutions, and fear founded upon bitter experience. For it was not officialdom that incited the witch burnings, but whole mass countrysides that rose up for a lynching. The universal horror of the witch must have had some cause behind it. The labyrinthine windings of the left-hand path are as extensive as they are devious. See, she's such a good girl. But while exposing them in something at any rate of their horror, I still maintain that the right-hand path of initiation and occult knowledge is a way to the loftiest mystical experiences and means of lifting the burden of human suffering. Not every student of this knowledge necessarily abuses it. There are many, nay, the great majority, who hold it selflessly in trust for mankind, using it to heal and bless and redeem that which is lost. It may well be asked, if this knowledge can be so disastrously abused, why should its veil ever be lifted? What answer is to be made to this question is a matter of temperament. Some will maintain the knowledge of what kind cannot be without its value. Others may say that we had better let sleeping dogs lie. The trouble is, however, that sleeping dogs have an unfortunate knack of waking up spontaneously. So much occult knowledge is abroad in the world, so much of the kind of things described in these pages is going on unknown and unsuspected in our midst, that it is very desirable that men of goodwill should investigate these forces which men of evil have permitted to their own ends. These things are pathologies of the mystic life. If they were better understood, then many tragedies may be averted. On the other hand, it is not well that everybody should indulge in the study of textbooks of pathology. A vivid imagination and a weak head are a disastrous combination. The readers of that one-time bestseller 3 Men in a Boat may remember the fate of the individual who spent a wet Sunday afternoon reading a medical textbook. At the finish, he was firmly convinced that he had got every disease described therein, with the single exception of housemaid's knee. This book is not intended merely to make the flesh creep, but is designed as a serious contribution to a little understood aspect of abnormal psychology, perverted in some instances to the purposes of crime. It is a book intended for serious students and for those who find themselves confronted by the problems that it describes, and who are trying to understand the forces that are at work below the surface of everyday life. It may happen to any one of us to break through the thin crust of normality and find ourselves face to face with these forces. Reading of the cited cases in this book, we may well say that there, but for the grace of God, goes any one of us. If I can give in these pages the knowledge of which protects, I shall have fulfilled my purpose. That's just the preface, though. You know what I mean? Damn, I need a haircut. That's just the preface, though. Do you know what I mean, boys? Let's see what we got here. My mum thinks a family member died of black magic. Oh, did a black magic, my bad. Did a black magic spell on me and my sister. It's quite possible. A great way to be, actually, no, you know what? I'll keep this for in the black way. If you need help and you want to know how the easiest way to tell if you've actually been cursed, hit me up. I got you. George, you look like, oh, lol. A curse puts an S in the word cure. Literally got through the cure. Very interesting. I love this kind of schizo etymology stuff. Okay, I'm just seeing eyes and stuff. I'm seeing a very quiet chat. You're just sitting kind of like everybody's been cursed. Everybody's been mute. Like a lot of people just sitting in chat in silence. Kind of crazy. Okay, all right, interesting. Shall I continue, or you guys just want me to carry on? Do you have any thoughts on what we've said? In fact, you know what? The StreamYard link is in the chat. Should you wish to call in. I was going to put it only in the Black Lodge, but I feel like we'll make it a bit of a free-for-all. Yeah, so I would be looking for these kind of synchronicities too. Jord making a guide on psychic self-defense after my sister tried killing herself yesterday. LMAO, this is a sign. Well, firstly, mate, I'm really fucking sorry to hear that. And secondly, yeah, that would be somebody who is incredibly vulnerable to psychic attack, and perhaps has already been influenced by, I think of this, the plight of the young woman, man. I think genuinely about how much, like, women, it's just a fact, okay, guys? Some races have more intuition than others. Sorry, it's a black pill for you, maybe. It's a red pill for you, maybe. I don't know. Some races are more intuitive. Some people are more intuitive. Some ethnicities are more intuitive. Some nationalities are more intuitive. Women are more intuitive than men. That's why the types of magic historically practiced by women, spell work, hearth work, magic in the home, protective magic in the home, it's all very much reliant on intuition. Whereas the more kind of scientific aspects of magic, astrology, or the threshold parts of magic where you really need a man to penetrate the liminal, that's typically reserved for men, necromancy, stuff like that. But like, women are just so much more intuitive, right? So imagine what it's like to be a young woman. Like, imagine what it's like to be a young woman and just be under constant psychic bombarded attack. I think young men are only just now starting to realize what that might be like with the rise of like clav and the rise of looks maxing and the rise of this slop dominating culture. Women have been in that mindset, in that paradigm of like having to compete and everything being about looks and whatever since like the 90s. So they're all like nervous, insecure wrecks. It's crazy, like the mind of and we talk a lot about male loneliness epidemic on this channel, and we talk a lot about like incel depopulation, like chud shit, and that is all very real, unfortunately. How much you choose to live in it and make it your problem is up to you, but that is all very real. I just don't think we think enough about like how fucked it would be to be a young woman. I mean, this is what Dion Fortune is, right? Like, she's a young woman who essentially had a nervous breakdown. I just find that story so fucking compelling. The idea that her employer was such a vindictive bitch and hated her so much, hated everyone so much, but hated her particularly so much that she just like locked her in a room for like 5 hours and just psychically berated her until she had a full-blown nervous breakdown. And y'all don't believe that magic is real? Fuck, man. Wow. No, me either, bro. I wouldn't doubt it either. Let me see. Pharmakeia is a large part of magic. Absolutely it is, yeah. There's nothing quicker. There's no better way to alter your consciousness, right? For better or for worse than drugs. That's what drugs do. They alter your consciousness. So you got to be aware of what you're doing when you're doing drugs. On that note, hello, Pharaoh. How are you, sir? Also wearing black to absorb the negative energy. I appreciate it. How are you? Well, actually, I'm going to hood up. This hair is getting obscene. How you been, man?
I'm wearing this in self-defense.
Dude, we spoke earlier in VC, do you remember? And I said to you about psych. Do you want to tell everyone what you told me? I thought it was fantastic.
About the ego or the face tattoo?
The ego first, and then we'll get to the tattoo.
Okay. How you psychically self-defense is ego. It's King Solomon telling the demons to get in the circle. Your ego is circular, so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's gravity. And how you psychically defend a talisman is you find stimuli and patterns within the material and you place meaning into them. Because this is here grounding me into the material, the spiritual has no dominion.
Yeah, so
because I'm wearing this fucking
example, right? If you were to get a piece of obsidian rock, which is supposed to be black and absorb negative energy and good for scrying into to see the other side or whatever, and you were to take this piece of rock, which is just a piece of rock with no significance or meaning at all, beside the collective idea that obsidian might have some magical properties. But if you were to take it and you were to charge it energetically with your belief, right? With meaning, like you use the words, if you put meaning into it, man, a lot of autistic people listening to this are not going to understand what you mean when you say put meaning into a rock. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean by that? Explain what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is the physical world is referential. And self-fulfilling ideas. It's a circle. It's literally a circle. It's like like you think of sigil magic, you think of drawing the circle around it. That's representative of the ego. It's psychic gravity. You're containing it.
Completely agree. Yeah.
You're containing it. So it's like you're creating a barrier.
In the same way that the salt circle, you do put a circle made of salt around yourself so that you can protect yourself mentally, right? You've made a clear delineation. In the same way, you're carrying a rock around that is charged with energy of protection, and in a way is going to, like, there's a feedback loop egoically. Yeah. It's a crazy concept. It's even crazier that it fucking works. Mock, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jord. I'm doing well.
Nice. Any thoughts on psychic self-defense? There are people in the chat saying that they really need to be hearing this at this time of year, which is really good for me. And this Leviathan guy, his mom is convinced that someone did a spell on his sister. She tried to kill herself yesterday.
Well, I don't have much experience in my personal life, but I do know my grandmother got cursed pretty fucking hard. And, led to her being fucking 92 years old, outliving all 3 of her sons now. So, that's some crazy fucking shit.
Damn. She got cursed, and because of the curse, she outlived all her kids?
Yeah, like all 3 of her sons, my own father included in this, of course. They all died of like fucking various circumstances. Heart attack at 52, right after retiring for one.
Does she have like a story? Does she have a story of being cursed, of like the actual incident?
Yes, it was something to do with because she very late in life decided, oh fuck my husband, I'm going with a different guy. Remarried, and her previous husband, who she had been married to for like 30 something years, his sister apparently did some sort of a curse on him. Now, when I was growing up, I was like, oh, that's a silly story, but now I'm like, oh,
man, I literally cannot stress how real this stuff is and how much it's like, look, when you hit the downvote button on this video and you're like, oh, that's just George yapping and waffling again, it's like, yeah, you're sending me a tiny little bit of negative energy. My giant ego and like impenetrable auric field is not going to be that affected by that. But if you go into a room and you get a sheet of tin and you get my birthday and my star signs and my like energy and a piece of my fucking hair, and you like literally meditate on intent, like with intent on that, and you carve into it an effigy or an image of me and you show it being destroyed over time, like that's gonna affect me. It might not affect me in direct ways that you might not see so directly. I mean, like anybody who's fucked around with this stuff knows that the universe is a wicked sense of humor and that it will manifest in the craziest ways, often with terrible kickbacks to the people who try. And some people are really protected. Like I genuinely believe that, like some people, and they're protected often by their own belief, which makes it so crazy to, this stuff is so tied to belief. And how
George, with the, for example, with the Down Fortune girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if she had some kind of like material leverage, like to give them more like point to the talisman thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the girl was trying to say you're nothing. Say this. And then it's like, fuck you, I have this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck you, I've done this. And you just created a barrier around yourself based on
dude, that's what it is when you have this is so real. That's what it is when you have a trophy display cabinet full of achievements. You go into your fucking house and you see there's a glass cabinet there full of trophies and awards and things that you've received, honors, right? And you look at that and that gasses you up. That gives you ego. That gives you self-esteem. It works in exactly the same way. If you had that trophy cabinet to retreat into, you could probably stand longer being psychically berated by the woman telling you that you're nothing and that you're insignificant. What I love about the Unfortunate is that she's saying like, yo, look, I was psychically attacked, but I'm not even needing to go into the etheric realm to tell you how this happened to me. I was hypnotized by an old woman who was like a jealous witch, basically, and who gave me a nervous fucking breakdown for 3 years. Like it's quite extensive. It's quite useful stuff because it's real. It's practical.
More self-defense.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that there's a reason that like witchery is female coded. I think that a lot of times women have to operate through subconscious influence in order to make their influence seen and effective, especially back in medieval times, ancient times. They didn't have rights. It's like, how do I get anything?
Mm-hmm.
Influence, subconscious influence, right?
100%.
My Eye of Horus tattoo is self-defense. It's psychic defense.
Yeah. Talk to us about this because this is kind of interesting. You literally tattooed like a talismanic protective image on your face, and people don't believe you that it's a real tattoo. People think you're wearing like coal eyeliner or some shit. You drew it on, or like that's literally you tattooed that on your face.
Literally anything I do in life, I have the reference of I have an Eye of Horus face tattoo that is running through my unconscious psyche 24/7 as I try to perceive myself. Anything anyone tries to do to me, fuck you. I have a face tattoo.
I can totally actually understand that. And I would say by the same logic as well, that's why people, when you do stuff like that, you really need to commit to the bit, because people who get tattoos on them that they don't like, or they will fall out of favor with, or come to have like what you tattoo on you is so important. It can work as a shield. It can work as a barrier. It can work as like a, I mean, I've seen some sick occult art that people have tattooed on them. And like you, as you say, this is like a, what do you call it? It's going to literally block out certain people from vampirizing your energy in a weird way, which is fucking crazy. But you just people got to be careful with tattoos because of the permanence in them, right? And because it's like, you got to sit with that. Luckily, you didn't get like a religious symbol tattooed on you, whatever, and then change your mind about ideology. Or some worse, I think, would be like a
Well, to
political.
be fair,
It is a religious
That would've
symbol.
been
it is a
horrible.
religious
No,
symbol.
okay, but the religion doesn't exist anymore. And it has a unique meaning to you. What I mean is like you getting a crucifix. Like I got a crucifix tattooed on me, right? I'm not a Christian anymore. I fucking regret it.
What
That
does
has
the
some-
wait? What does the crucifix have to do with Christianity?
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, esoterically, I
gonna
completely
say.
agree. But it's what it projects to other people, right? Because like symbolically speaking, you're giving off two things. There's your interpretation, and then there's the interpretation of other people. Assuming that we all live in our own reality tunnels, basically.
Wait. Like, let me use someone in the chat, for example. Being wealthy and healthy is better protection than any face tattoo. That's such a fucking cope, though. That's such a fucking cope. Because at the end of the day, if you wanted a face tattoo, the psychic gravity of other people will prevent you from getting it.
Well,
Even though you're wealthy and healthy.
That's true. That's absolutely just why. That's why most people don't have face tattoos because of the
It's that simple.
People in having like carry on. Okay, we will. I'm gonna let more war in here. I just want to know if you guys have any thoughts on psych. I'll add this before we continue. Right? I'll say. Let's see. Okay, signs. Typical signs of a psychic attack. How do you know if you're under a psychic attack? Right? And without doing what I'll refer to as the egg test, which will be posted about in the Black Lodge for anybody who wants to know about it. Okay, the really obvious it may help a lot of you actually listening to this to just think psychological when you hear psychic, because there's no point getting into intuition and getting into like clairvoyance and clairsentience with some of you. You just like this stuff can be helpful and practical to you, even just looking at it through a psychological lens. So I would say if you're suddenly having, like she described, prone to sudden bouts of fear and anxiety and nervous neuroticism, that a deep sense of despair or dread or fear that doesn't seem to have any cause would highly, if you're alone in the world with no and you're sober and you're alone and you're just hit with like a real deep sense of dread, there's a chance that people are throwing like shit at you. You know what I mean? Psychically speaking. Intrusive thoughts that don't seem to be your own, that don't seem to come from you or the daimon that lives in your head that you colloquially refer to as your conscience. Thoughts that seem to come from nowhere, thoughts that seem to like pop in randomly out of the ether, right? Like that aren't yours per se. Compulsive thoughts and compulsive behaviors as well would suggest that you're under like, did you like, if you go on a spending spree and like shit a bunch of money, I might suggest that someone is trying to fuck with you energetically. Nightmares, sleep paralysis, visions in sleep that are weird and kind of typically dreaming of the people who are fucking with you happens a lot. So that's useful, right? Some of you can't remember your dreams, obviously. If you feel drained, if you feel exhausted, if you feel lethargic, like lethargy is a huge one. If you feel a loss of presence, like aura, if you feel a literal loss of like aura, you feel your personality shifting, like mood swings and changes a lot. These can all be pretty decent indicative signs of like other people's intent of affecting you, basically.
Well, I want to give a live example right now. So the Matt Dubaya guy is trying that on me right now.
What's he saying? Let's look at the psychic attack. You really do. On one hand, I'm like obviously tongue in cheek when I'm saying this, but on the one hand, it's like words are spells.
Well, it's really the intention in the words. And the Matt Dubaya guy is intimidated by me. He's intimidated by me. Matt Dubaya, you can't put me in a box.
Is this the guy's voice? No, that's reality. Tats won't fix your loved one. Tats won't fix your loved one's health.
Hey, Matt Dubaya, when you're submitting to the loved ones around you, not expressing yourself, being scared of self-expression, you are literally boxed in.
He thinks they're sigils. He agrees. He thinks they're sigils.
They are sigils, and you're staring at the sigil right now with fixation, trying to bring it down, and it's creating a barrier between us that I want to exist because your psychological framework fucking sucks. I want that barrier, Matt Dubaya. I don't like you.
If it's juju, it's bad. Couldn't disagree more. In fact, there's actually a lot of old slave magic, Black African and African American slave magic, like Wu Dun or whatever it's called. Practices from that that are really fucking effective. All you're doing when you put on a robe or you light a candle or all you're doing is channeling intent. A really talented magician can just think about someone and curse them, but like, let's be honest, none of us are at that level. That we would have to want to.
So Jord, that brings me to another thing that I wanted to bring up. Like how much is the mechanics of prayer like the same?
Absolutely.
You know what
the
I
same.
mean?
Absolutely the same, which is why she's talking about Christian Science. And by the way, why it is so hard to curse somebody who's a genuine believer in God, which Christians will use to reaffirm they're like, see, look, God protects me. It's like, yeah, well, Vishnu protects that guy and Yahweh protects that guy, and you're all very well protected by your respective gods. But like, it really is a matter of belief. If you believe that you're wearing that crucifix and that crucifix is actually protecting you, lo and behold, it will protect you. Whereas
that's another thing I was going to say is Christianity is operated as a great psychic shield for a long time. I mean, a very, very powerful one for
and by the way,
thousands of years.
So is atheism and so is materialism, right? Because what we're really looking at when we're looking at mainstream religion is what is the psychic cope defense mechanism of the population. It was Christianity, and then it shifted through like Marx and Nietzsche and Darwin into like atheism, and now the psychic cope is like, oh, hallucinations. They didn't even have a word for hallucinations in medieval times. You just saw spirits. Like, we're a large part of it is semantic, I think, but who am I to delineate? You know what I mean?
Well, Jordan.
Yeah, it's like
I don't mean.
Sorry, go ahead, no.
That Matt guy really pissed me off. But you know what? Like, it's the permanence of the tattoo, where it's like,
bro, chill about the tattoo.
No, I'm pissed at this guy because, hey, Matt, it doesn't matter.
Matt, you're gonna get cursed. Matt, you're gonna get cursed now.
It doesn't matter what the fuck you think. This isn't getting wiped off. It's there permanently. Cope about it. About it.
You'll think.
Dude, I don't even know why they're hating. Like, if you're gonna get a face tattoo, like a Horus one is like cool, right? Like,
it's clearly the best option you could go for. Seriously.
Now, fuck that guy. Fuck that. Hey, Matt. Fuck you. Fuck your lineage. Fuck your bloodline. You're from a lesser spiritual caste than me by blood. Your people are cowards and peasants. You have no dominion in magic, and you need to accept that, Matt.
Damn. MDMA can act as a needed shock. What are your thoughts on MDMA? Look, it's like any other chemical compound. Of course, they're not all alike. They're all different. They all have different magical properties and purposes, but it's great for couples therapy. It's great for like lowering people's inhibitions. It's great for creating an in-group of people. You know, there's actually documented studies that show MDMA makes people more racist under certain conditions. Like when you're in a smoking area with your friends all on MDMA and some random stranger comes to talk to you, it's really bad energy. It makes you very aware of the energy of the in-group and the love and what harmony versus the out-group of like, it's a very interesting drug. It's a very interesting chemical compound. I'm not against using it, but be aware, using it extensively and using it a lot makes you extremely vulnerable to psychic attack, right? You're weak where you're weak. It seems very simple. It seems overly Christmas cracker, but like if you're an MDMA addict, if you're using too much MDMA, if you're putting yourself around, you know, setting matters massively also. Who are you around when you're taking the MDMA? Are you around because your barriers are going to be low, right? That could be really fun and allow you to be very open with people and very vulnerable with people. Psychically speaking, it can allow you to bond with people really well. But then what if you're with someone who's just going to psychically vampirize from you, right? Like, who are you taking MDMA with? It's such a general, like, what are your thoughts on MDMA is almost like a too vague question, magically speaking. It's potent, I'll tell you that. Like, there are many drugs, similar drugs like that.
Like, man,
this guy's obsessed with plants. You would be obsessed with plants too if you were into magic. Trust me.
I want to speak something about the nervous system thing though. So, modern social engineering, people are very taught into depressive states, and depression is disassociation from your body. So you're disassociating mind and body, and the cope for that is so you don't feel nervous, you don't feel twitchy. But really just locks you further into like the curse, right?
I couldn't agree more. I think you got to embrace the neuroticism and shit. The only way out is through. I'm telling you, all the repression just comes out in weird ways. Like it just stores. Imagine me trying not to be like a twitchy, neurotic guy. Like I'd be so anal and weird, and like it's just not worth it.
Absolutely. And like a lot of people in the chat, like I'd like to challenge you all. Like just sit there and be nervous. Why fight it? You're afraid. Everyone is existentially terrified. Everyone has fears in their head. Be a nervous
from a psychological and neurological perspective, there's actually a lot to what you're saying, man. You know, like animals in nature, they spaz out. They have like trauma spaz outs when they go through. Like if an animal gets, like a gazelle gets caught by a lion, but then it gets away or whatever, it's like a bit injured, but it's going to recover. It will go off into like the wilderness and just spaz out. Like have a trauma spaz out on the floor, release all the anxiety, bad energy or whatever that's come from being literally attacked. Forget a psychological attack. It's been literally attacked. You kind of need to be doing that. You kind of need to be trauma spazzing. I say this a lot, you know.
But Tommy Swab,
well, even on the biological
Tommy Swab,
level,
he called me
like,
George. I legally changed my name to Horace, by the way, Tommy Swab.
I legally changed my name to Horror. Sorry, Mo, you were speaking.
Oh no, I was just saying on the trauma spaz out, like even at the biological level, it's about getting rid of excess chemicals which are produced during like the stress event, essentially.
Completely.
And you're getting them out of your system, which is why, you know, when people scream, for example, when they're in pain, their injuries heal faster, right? Because their nervous system is essentially like
discharging.
Discharging the buildup that came from the stress event, right?
And that's why it's so frustrating when you try and tell people like, what are the remedies to like, oh, I'm under psychic attack, what do I do? Well, it's like, unfortunately, they're very basic physiological shit that you would need to get right. You would need to sleep, you would need to eat, you would need to be like not sexually repressed, you would need to, you know what I mean? Like you would need to do all this kind of stuff. It's like very, very difficult to explain.
And
to
this,
people.
I don't know if it's correlation or causation or whatever, right? Well, I mean, you know, things can act on each other retroactively, but when people sort of are cursed, what you tend to see is an increase in the presence of unexplained mold, right? So mold despite dry weather, and sort of accelerated putrefaction in their vicinity.
That's a fucking interesting point. That's a fucking interesting. Well, look, you know that there are certain relationships that you've been in that you've come out of physically ill. Like, you know, there must be like relationships that you've gone into with people that you've been like, wow, that was stressful. I actually came out of that relationship. I dated that girl for 6 months and I'm like ill now from getting her. I need to recover from. It's very hard to explain, I guess, but the way people exchange energy.
Well, also what Noam was saying about the ego, what I find interesting is that, and I wonder like to what degree sort of this is part of a curse, right? In that, like, if the ego is a closed circle, right? And essentially like is being cursed, being swallowed by someone else's circle, right? Because you enter their circle and you become just a character inside their mind, and that's what it means to be cursed.
Quite literally, yes. So, for example, right, you can't curse someone or bless someone unless you have a little bit of like sway over them mentally. Yeah. You can help them to curse themselves or bless themselves, but you can't unless you dominate someone mentally, which is what she's describing with the employer in the room, right? She's talking about she's exhausted, she's worn down, she's tired, and someone's just going to literally siphon energy out. It's really interesting, kind of like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Well, so it's that depressive detachment is how you enter trance.
Mm-hmm.
So embrace the nervous system bridges the mind and body. So her acknowledging that she's nervous right now gives her the power to be like, wait a minute, you're trying something on me. You feel it, you're experiencing it, you're sensing it.
Yeah, if you have to stand there and pretend you're not nervous, it just makes you more fuckable with. And this is why I'm saying the people who think they have the most rigid minds, the people who are like, oh, I can spot a psyop a mile away. Bro, you're being psyop the hardest. You're being psyop the hardest. If you understood how malleable your mind was, then you'd accept. It's kind of like getting punched in the face. You can lean into the punch if you want. Like you can get, like you're being psyop. If you want, you can throw your face at the person's fist and see what happens. I don't know what you want me to say. Like,
hit me in the chin, I won't feel it.
Yeah, it's just so retarded. Like it's just so like people just, oh man, like fuck. It's happening all the time to all of us and on various different levels, right? I'm not even talking about like apotropaic attacks or whatever. I'm talking about just like basic marketing is a science.
No, but the thing with marketing is that like it's not even basic, right? It's incredibly aggressive, and like I refer to it as like as the feeling of having someone's dirty fingers inside your brain. You know what I mean? Like someone is just in there and they're just like poking through the folds. Oh, what's in here? What's in there? Where can I shove my product? And
There's no better example of this than the jingle, you know, the marketing jingle of like shampoo or whatever, and you're like, oh fuck me, you're just mind raping me. Like you're literally that's like ring a Rosie. That's a spell, bro. That's like absolute fucking spellcraft. I don't know how nobody sees that.
Well, again,
into the kind of relationship point, man, I dated a Scorpio for the longest time, and it was just constant psychological attacks, and I like wised up to it at some point. But you know, I'm serious, bro. I'm serious.
Bro, they attack you because they love you, bro. That's so funny. That's
what they'd have you believe.
it's the eternal shit test, right? Which is cute at
the
first.
The eternal shit test, bro.
Yeah.
And then it becomes fucking exhausting.
Well, at some point they turn like 35 and you're like, okay, this isn't cute anymore. You need to grow the fuck up.
Hey, wait. Baptist MAGA. This is real gold. I also have a top piece. This is real gold. Another talisman. Fuck you, nigga. You're broke. You suck.
I don't remember the name of the chatter in the chat, but like you're being swallowed into into the Pharaoh's bubble, right? You are in his palace right now.
You think you're baiting the Pharaoh, but the Pharaoh's
Baptist Maggot, the image of me is going to be in your dreams tonight.
Uh-oh. It's going to diddle
Whether
you.
directly or
Diddle
indirectly.
you in your sleep. He's going to sleep diddle you now. Actually, we really should talk about psychic dream graping at some point. I don't think it's a whole stream, but it needs to be, the context of it needs to be covered. Okay, do any of you want to read instead of me? Wow.
I can read.
You want to read? Yeah, dope. Take it away.
I'm stealing your job.
No, literally. I'm good. I'd like time to actually think on it. It's really hard to think on it and read at the same time. Maybe we could go paragraph by paragraph if you want.
Okay. If we look at the universe around us, we cannot fail to realize that there must be some overruling plan coordinating its infinite complexity. If we take into our hands and examine minutely any living thing, however simple, equally must we realize that the ordered diversity of its part is built up on a determining framework. Scientists sought in vain for the organizing principle. It will never find it on a physical plane. What is not physical, it is not the inherent nature of atoms which causes them to arrange themselves in the complex patterns of living tissues. The driving force of the universe, the framework upon which it is built up in all its parts, belong to another phase of manifestation than our physical plane, having other dimensions than the three. So I'm a little blind, to which we are habituated. And
she's also incredibly hard to read, unfortunately. Like,
no, I'm like actually blind, and I actually
like I'll do it, and I can't see. I can't read words. Like, amazing. That's okay.
Like I'm actually fucking blind, bro.
No, keep going. Where did you get to?
I just want to say, being blind helps my psychic barriers. By the way,
I'm not even joking. Yeah, when you lose your 5 main senses, you gain other ones. That's a fact. It's really, you can ask Chinese key masters about that.
The blind oracle trope. Than the three to which we are habituated, and perceived by other modes of consciousness than those to which we are accustomed. And we live in the mind of invisible forces, whose effects alone we perceive. We move among invisible forms, whose actions we very often do not perceive at all, though we may be profoundly affected by them. I'll let you take over here, Jordan.
Oh shit, I'm muted. Although we may be profoundly affected by them. Okay. In this mind side of nature, invisible to our senses, intangible to our instruments of precision, many things can happen that are not without their echo on the physical plane. This is kind of what I was trying to describe before, right? Like the sickness that manifests in your body is just an echo of something happening elsewhere that you can't perceive. Okay, hold on. There are beings that live in this invisible world, as fish live in the sea. There are men and women with trained minds or special aptitudes who can enter into this invisible world as a diver descends to the ocean bed. There are also times when, as it happens to land and sea dikes break, the invisible forces flow in upon us and swamp our lives. Halloween, for example. Normally, this does not occur. We are protected by our very incapacity to perceive these. Whoever's mic that is in the background, can you all mute up? Because that's annoying as fuck. Normally, this does not occur. We are protected by our very incapacity. We are protected by our very incapacity to perceive these invisible forces. There are 4 conditions, however, in which the veil may be rent and we may meet the unseen. We may find ourselves in a place where those forces are concentrated. We may meet people who are handling those forces. We may ourselves go out to meet the unseen, led by our interest in it, and get out of our depth before we know where we are. Or we may fall victim to certain pathological conditions which rend the veil. The threshold of the unseen is a treacherous coast on which to bathe. There are potholes and currents and quicksands. The strong swimmer who knows the coast may venture in comparative safety, but the non-swimmer who takes counsel of nothing but his own impulses may pay for his temerity with his life. But we must not make the mistake of thinking that these invisible forces are necessarily evil and inimical to humanity. They are no more inimical in themselves than are water or fire, but they are potent. If we run counter to them, the result is disastrous for us, for we have broken a natural law. But they are not out to attack us, and more than we are out, any more than we are out to attack them. We must face the fact, however, that men and women with knowledge of these things have, both in the past and the present, used that knowledge unscrupulously, and that we may find ourselves involved in the results of their actions. It may safely be said that the unseen is only evil and inimical to humanity when it has been corrupted and perverted by the activities of these unscrupulous men and women, who initiates call adepts of the left-hand path. We must consider the outward and visible signs of psychic attack before we are in a position to analyze the nature of such attacks and indicate their source of origin. It's a fundamental rule that diagnosis must precede treatment. There are many different kinds of psychic attacks, and methods that will dispose of one will be ineffectual against the other. The commonest form of psychic attack is that which proceeds from the ignorant or malignant mind of our fellow human beings. This is what I was referring to earlier as the typical atropaic, I never say that fucking word, apotropaic, unconscious psychic attack. The commonest form of psychic attack. This is you throwing shade at people on a daily basis in ways that perhaps you aren't even aware of, is the point. We say ignorant as well as malignant, for all attacks are not deliberately motivated. The injury may be as accidental as that inflicted by a skidding car, but this must always be borne in mind, and we should not impute malice or wickedness as a matter of course when we feel like we are being victimized. Our persecutor may himself be a victim. We should not accuse a man of malice if we had linked hands with him and he had stepped on a live rail. Nevertheless, we should receive his hand as a severe shock. So it may be with many occult attacks. The person from whom it emanates may not have originated it. Therefore, we should never respond to attack with attack, thus bringing ourselves down to the moral level of our attackers, but rely upon humane methods, which are in reality equally effectual and far less dangerous to handle. Noam, you want to read more? Or anyone else want to read more? In fact, what are you guys thinking about this right now?
Well, the basic idea is like ascension, and like when you like get into like root things like fighting back, you're kind of like feeding into it. But I'm not too sure I agree like entirely like that you should never fight back. You should go through the motion. So it's like you don't want to be played entirely impulsively, entirely reactionary.
Why did it surprise me that left-hand path Noam does not agree with the?
I don't disagree. I get the principality, but you shouldn't just give up the ground. That's the thing. You need activity. So I believe the best defense is offense, right?
I'm gonna go get an energy drink. You guys keep riffing on this. I'm sure you have a lot to say. Actually, no, I think.
So it's like you need to go low and then subvert expectation to really gain the leverage. So you go low and then you open up, like God becoming Christ. And
what I think the point she's trying to make here is that she's just denying any form of reactivity, right? Like any sort of reaction to it is even like you refuse to acknowledge it, right?
But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, this entire article is a reaction.
Of course, no, but that's the paradox of it, right? Because essentially, what she's saying is that, like, if someone curses you, you say, "Oh, well, you cursed me. I don't even think about you," right? And then
denying the reaction is a reaction in and of itself.
You sever whatever leverage or connection that they might have on your psyche, right? Like
I'm a believer in going through it, though. The devil always gets his due. The devil's entitled to his due, and you need to uphold your end of the bargain. That's existence, right? So it's like, that's what I was talking about with like the depersonalization thing. Was Diane Fortune a Pisces?
If I remember correctly, she was a Libra, but let me check that out actually. Maybe she was a Pisces. Pisces seems way more legit, doesn't it? Diane Fortune natal chart. Let me see. My God, why is this so hard to find? Oh, I guess because her name's Fortune. You know, her real name was Violet Firth, which I just think is such a fucking dope name. Okay. Moon is Libra. My bad. Moon is Libra. She's a Sagittarius, and her rising is Aquarius. And the midheaven is also Sag, which makes so much fucking sense. That's hella interesting. That Sag makes so much sense, actually. Like, holy shit.
I have a love-hate thing with Sagittarius.
British occultist, ceremonial magician, novelist, and author, founder of the Fraternity of the Inner Light, an occult organization that promoted philosophies, Sagittarius, which she claimed had been taught to her by spiritual entities known as ascended masters. A prolific writer, she produced a large number of articles and books on her occult ideas and also authored 7 novels, several of which expound upon her occult themes.
Well,
and to kind of back up a bit, like she did a bit of a mogging on materialism there, right? Where what happens when you just microscope everything? You just get kind of like we were talking about earlier, more and more mystery. You know, what's an atom? What's beneath an atom? And yet, right? She's pointing out there's obviously a higher order pattern, right, to the way the world plays out. And she's even claiming higher order consciousnesses, right? You can either acknowledge and tap into, or you can pretend they don't exist. So I don't know, pretty based, pretty tapped in. I like what I'm hearing so far.
No, so do I, and I think that's why I'm saying it's a really good bridge for people who are perhaps Christian or even atheists to kind of start like understanding the occult better. It's not like she's coming at it from a purely Machiavellian, like, this is how we get power kind of lens that a lot of.
I don't like calling Christians because they don't believe in Christ.
Yeah, but Dion Fortune actually was a Christian, like in the Rosicrucian sense of like she would be a lot closer to your understanding of Christ. Like she thought the Catholic Church was making everyone sexless and boring, and like she was like, but she's still the good girl of occultism because she really delineates between black left hand path and white right hand path magic.
You know the irony in this though, like again, like it's like what she just wrote about, right? Like, oh, you can't be reactive, but like you're being reactive by not being reactive. It's like the monks on Mount Athos, right? Their entire
thing is that British thing about even your desire to free yourself of desires is just another desire, right? Like, but to address living the dream here, Noam and I are both Geminis, right? So we have a love-hate relationship with Sagittarians, what with you being across the wheel from us. The thing is about Sagittarius, it's a very ideological sign, like 9th house and stuff, and Sag is all associated with the teacher and the guru, higher learning, philosophies, religion, law, not law like law and order in the Libra police
dogma,
sense, but in the law like the judge and the court and like what we actually believe as a society. It's a very high-minded sign. Now, if you get people with a stellium in Sagittarius, you end up with someone like Clavicular, who is like made his own ideology about how looks are the most supreme thing in the world, and that's all that matters, right? If you get 1 or 2 placements like Dion Fortune, you get someone who's really high-minded and interesting and philosophical. A little bit too much Sag. You never want to go full Sag. Is really what I'm thinking, because it's too. Let me give you an example. The best example is, and you're all gonna fucking hate this, but I'm absolutely right, so I don't care. The best example is the Zuma. The Zuma and the people who have their Pluto or their sex and death drive in Sagittarius. There's a whole generation of Zumas who are desperate for bringing back religion and dogma and ideology, and this is based and this is cringe, and these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, and this is the Jews and this is the Gentiles, and like there's a whole ideology forming, like a Sagittarian Zuma ideology forming, because the thing that Sagittarius most wants is to make sense of the world, like, and in a way, mapping things out. And in a way, whilst this is cool, damn, dude, you can't make sense of the world. We're living in an MMORPG video game. You never will. You'll die not knowing the great mysteries of life, and that's part of it. That's the whole point.
Well, George, it's
So there's a futility in Sagittarius. It's quite sad actually watching these people. For example, do not give a Sagittarius person a fucking large language learning model, because it will just sycophantically tell them what they already believe, and they'll cook up a belief system between them and the fucking Chat GPT. Like, don't do it, man. It's
what it is Sagittarius look at the spiritual, but spirit is very mercurial, so it's like this fixed shape that just melts into something else, and it's like it's a never-ending rabbit hole. It's a never-ending goose chase.
Yep.
That chair is made of mercury.
Listen, in no other fucking what do you call it? In no other time period would ideology have come around like this in the way it is for these young men. Like, it's crazy. No, not for a very long time. The last time I think was the Enlightenment. The last time I think everybody went, no, we're going to do it like this and change our ideological direction like an arrow, like Sagittarius, was in the fucking Enlightenment. Like, somebody Google me on that. Check me.
Well, the way
what I do like about Sagittarius, like you said, Dion Fortune has a couple Sagittarius placements, and then she's able to like accept that, like, the further you try to map it, the further it moves. The mystery by default has to remain a mystery.
Completely.
It's self-fulfilling. It's the ego of mystery.
No, she's very good with that, and she understands like the liminal kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, but you say F the Enlightenment now, but you're a Sagittarius. If you'd have been born in the Enlightenment, you'd be like in some coffee house somewhere talking about freedom and liberty and like down with the king. You don't understand. You're just the fucking product of your astrology. Okay, whatever. We're not getting into that.
Fuck the king. Hey, fuck the king.
Hey, fuck the king.
Well,
no God. No.
Who the fuck is the king to tell me shit? Who the fuck is the king to tell me anything? Who said he's the fucking king?
I couldn't agree more. Let me continue with this though, otherwise we'll be stuck here. Would you guys have any other
the way I
points?
always describe Sagittarius is that they're sort of struck by lightning, and so if they can channel the energy into the earth, then they have like fantastic energy like gifted to them by the heavens, literally. Whereas if they short circuit at some point, they just end up totally fried, right?
Favored
like
favored by Jupiter, and Jupiter is the one who gives you your morals and your dogmas and your belief systems. So I would say, like, you know, they're blessed by Jupiter, but they're cooked in a lot of other ways, right?
But Jupiter is also Piscean mania.
Yeah, precisely. Like, it's just not that side of Jupiter. It's like the straight as an arrow, goal oriented. You know, Andrew Tate is a Sagittarius. He really believes what he believes. It's not always, you do get this Sagittarian thing towards priests and teachers. And in history, in a Piscean age, most of these big Sag characters ended up being bishops and cardinals and religious teachers or whatever, and for most of them through a Christian lens. But now you're getting Sagittariuses like Andrew Tate, who like are making their own ideology, like fit for the
selling online courses. A little microcosm. Jupiter is your brain on the microcosm. The brain doesn't create thought and interprets it.
Or Mercury is macro, Jupiter is micro, because
no, Jupiter is macro. The microcosm of Jupiter would be your brain.
It's funny that
the king of the gods, your brain. It's literally interpretation. The issue with interpretation is, again, you're not creating the phenomenon that you're interpreting. Your interpretation is reactionary to your senses, right? So I touch something, and then my brain is creating a signal or image to interpret that. But the phenomenon I touch doesn't come from my brain.
People saying Sag is cool in the chat. Sag is cool, but Sag, like a little bit of a black pill. Sag is the pedo/pederast sign. Like, not all, like, I hope we're at the point now where we're not doing sun sign reductionism to the point of like, oh, sun, but like inappropriate boundary crossing and taboos and kinkiness is very much associated with Sagittarius because it crosses lines. It's all about direction. Like, it's Zeus is a horny guy, right? Like, I'm just putting it out there as a kind of trope. There are some Sagittarius that are a bit weird, like, just being honest.
Jordan, how I like to interpret Zeus is he's having a dogmatic debate, then he pulls his dick out and starts jerking off. Like, it's the dialect, it's your brain, it's left hand and right hand.
This guy saying my Jupiter is in Pisces and my mania max. No, you should be very caring and compassionate leader. Fundamentally, when you have power, you should be very emotional with it. But just try and be a bit more assertive, if anything. When you know.
But I find that there's an interesting mirror, right, in like the sort of Jupiterian Sagittarius.
Bro, and Lilith in Sag. You know what I'm saying? This guy's saying Lilith in Sag supremacy, bro. Lilith in Sag. Think about that for a second, right? Think about, man, these Liliths in fire signs. It gets crazy. Sorry, go ahead.
No, there's an interesting reflection with sort of like Saturnian Aquarius, where they both have similar issues with pride, right? Where they're both like willing to reinvent the wheel just for the sake of having their name on it, right? Oftentimes, when they get sucked into their ego.
Well, because for Sag, it's like a grand vision, right? Whereas for Aquarius, it's more of a like they know better. So and the thing is with Aquarius, they often are smarter than the collective. But they're just not very good at like communicating that. I'm too freaky for Jupiter. It's just a freaky placement. It is a freaky placement. Live in Sag is a lock 'em up. Check this guy's hard drive kind of placement. I'm just being honest with you, but hey, what do I know? All right, let me keep going.
Oh, can I point something out? Can I butt in and point something out real quick? So Dion Fortune, I can already tell she's the kind of esotericist, right? That's speaking my language. I can tell that she's deeply influenced by the Western philosophical tradition. Absolutely. In the philosophy as a way of life, like type of philosophy.
Yeah.
And even her valorizing, right, the right hand path. Like, that's an ancient like Pythagorean symbol. You know, they always used to put on their right shoe first for a reason. It was one of the like weird things you had to do as a Pythagorean.
So many weird little things they were doing. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I totally get that. You like the orientation of her, basically, is what you're saying. You like the direction. Yeah. I can't disagree, actually. She was one of my like earliest influences in this kind of stuff. We continue. Guys, just interrupt me at the end of a paragraph if you have something to say. People also come into touch with the unseen through the influence of places. Someone who is not actually psychic, but who is sufficiently sensitive to perceive the invisible forces subconsciously, may go to a place where they are concentrated at a high tension. Normally, although we move in the midst of these forces, for they sustain our universe, we are oblivious of them. Where they are concentrated, however, unless we are very dense-minded, we begin to be dimly conscious of something that is affecting us and stirring our subliminal self. It may happen that the barrier between consciousness and subconsciousness is dense in some people, and they are never able clearly to realize what is going on. They merely have the sense of oppression and general malaise, which lifts when they go away to another place. Consequently, the condition may never be detected and lead to years of ill health and misery. More commonly, however, if there is a definite psychic attack of sufficient force to make it self-noticeable at all, there will soon begin to appear characteristic dreams. These may include a sense of weight upon the chest, as if someone were kneeling on the sleeper. If the sense of the weight is present, it is certain that the attack emanates locally, for the weight of it is due to the concentration of etheric substance or ectoplasm. It is sufficiently tangible to press down on the scale of balance when it is possible to capture it for measurement. A great deal of research has been done with materializing mediums upon the nature of this tangible, subtle substance, and the reader is referred to the books on experiments conducted by Crawford with the Gothinger Circle at Belfast and in Paris with Eva C. by other experiments for further information and evidence on this subject. It may be noted that
Bro, don't even get me started on subtle substances. It's just funny because I know where she's getting this stuff. That's all I'm saying. I just know her sources.
It may be noted that Crawford eventually committed suicide.
Slightly off topic, but not really. If you know the symbolism, she's talking about sleep paralysis and like
the demon. Everyone gets the demon, right?
George, do you know where the phrase nightmare comes from?
Nightmare, like a horse.
Yeah, so horses would like randomly freak out at night or during people's sleep paralysis episodes.
Okay, that's based. That's insanely based.
The horse is the creature of revelation.
There's so much going on with the horse and how energetically and emotionally sensitive it is. Like they're one of the most retarded animals intellectually, but emotionally intelligent animals because they've been with us for so long. So they're really dumb, like a cow level dumb, but they have this insane emotional intuition. I'm convinced this is why Poseidon, the sea god, rules the horse to the Greeks, even though the horse is obviously a land animal. I'm thinking it's
George, if I may, like I have to disagree with your statement on the horse's intellect. Horses are incredibly intelligent. I would say they're they're not as smart, but they're in the vicinity of dogs in terms of intelligence. Wait. Let me just finish. The one crucial difference, like even though it's the kind of the case with dogs, it's much more so with horses. They're absolute cowards, right? Like the person who taught me to take care of horses taught me
it's not coward. It's like you need to really understand like the principality of fear is also revelation. The horse is afraid because it's revealed to it, right? Like
Of course, but what I'm saying is that it's very easy to psychologically dominate a horse, right? Because you just look at him and you say I am willing to kill you in this instant, and even if though you're not physically capable of it, the horse can catch that vibe immediately, and he'll become sort of submissive to you if he's not a wild horse, right? And so what I mean is that they are intelligent, but because they're so emotionally sensitive, they submit to very simple things, right? And they're reactive to very simple things as well.
I completely disagree that prey animals are more intelligent. It's just a perception thing. So I always like that the horse has the vision on the side because the peripheral is revealed to it, right? It's the side vision.
Oh,
it's
no, I'm not, usually.
No, I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking. Okay. Yeah, someone in the chat. Prey animals are more linear in thought. They're more linear in vision, more linear in perception. The reason,
well, you know what? I'm always talking about wide eye supremacy, right? Come on, you know how
I could see to the side of me.
Yep. Very reptilian. Sorry, there's some shit happening outside my house. Give me a second, guys. Does somebody want to take over and just read this next paragraph for me?
All right. We started at sense of fear, right?
Yes.
So a sense of fear and oppression is very characteristic of an occult attack, and one of the surest signs that herald it. It is extremely rare for an attack to make itself manifest out of the blue, as it were. We are not in our nominal state of mind, body, and circumstance, and then find ourselves suddenly in the midst of an invisible battle. An approaching occult influences cast its shadow on consciousness before it makes itself apparent to the non-psychic. The reason for this is that we perceive subconsciously before we realize consciously, and a line of creeping shade indicates the penetrating of the subconscious sensor from below upwards. As the attack progresses,
That's crazy. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. As the attack progresses, nervous exhaustion becomes increasingly marked, and there may, under certain conditions, which we will consider later, be such wasting of the tissues that the victim is reduced to a mere bloodless shell of skin and bones, lying on the bed, too weak to move, and yet no definite disease can be demonstrated. Right, so we're talking here about like just a person wasting away, right? Just being completely drained, like I don't know, like
to a point of physical like exhaustion. So I mean, like lethargy being one of the key indicators of like
I picture the dark wizard just coming in with a straw and being like, "I drink your milkshake," and just and just sucking up all your vril. I drink your vrilk shake, you know, or whatever.
There is actually a lot to that, metaphorically speaking. Okay, hold on, let me see.
Well, it's how to say, like, it's an act of conquest in a way, right? Like when you're being vampirized, like the person is just like how to say, like it's the, you know, the big fish eat the small fish, right? So like you have sort of like larger entities that like will go around like absorbing smaller entities to sustain their own life. Because they're not self-sustaining, right? Because they're so large spiritually, they need to feed on others. You know, I don't know. You think about about the God Emperor in 40K, right, or something like this, right, where you need to constantly be fed other people in order to maintain your presence.
And that's this on like chapter 5 of this book about literal vampirism.
I'm just like, I know I keep going to your chat, but like
dude, the chat is psyoping you. You need to know that the chat.
No. Look, the migraine coconut.
With us, but okay,
if you want to know more about like peripheral vision and like intelligence and awareness, don't try to be disagreeable about it. Just ask a fucking question.
Oh, dude, that's really hard for people's egos. That's really hard for people's egos to be like, you know, because there's a humility in asking questions, right? Whereas making statements is a lot more like alpha. Making statements is a lot more.
In a weird way, it's less alpha though, because like you're just repressing yourself.
I'm talking about to the mind of like, you know, like I get
what well, since we're on the chat, I wanted to address something one of the chatters said earlier, right?
Like, that, by the way, guys, for those of you in the chat, the link is in the chat. You want to hop in and, you know, whatever. I'm even for a very short space of time letting people who watch these streams apply to join the Black Lodge. I'll be honest, the chances of you getting in, if you're not a member and you don't know a little bit about the occult already, is very, very slim. We shit test everyone who comes in, but the vetting link is there. If you want to join, you can join. Like, you can try and join. I mean, I would. Like, and by the way, also, if you get rejected from the Black Lodge, don't take it personally. We reject people for all sorts of reasons. We're like a girl who gets the ick about everything, right? Like it's something that's it's not personal. You just did something that gave us the ick, and sorry, come back later. Try again later. Like wait a few months, you know? Like I don't know. We don't keep everyone blocked out there. When you get kicked out there, you can try again. It's just you're gonna get the same result. And by the way, there's a wait list. Like there's already a few people waiting in there still at the moment. We try and get through like one every day, but we really are shit testing people. It's not a joke. Like we're going to take you, like we're not taking random people in who we can't get to know, right? It's not like a faceless and chat room. It's a real place in essence. But yeah, sorry.
Dude, it's funny that you renamed it to the Black Lodge and now we're vetting people, right? I mean,
at this point,
I'm sure that's intentional. I know that is, but yeah.
Hey, by the way, there are people that want to get in there and they haven't even liked the stream.
Bruh, the 67 people watching right now. I know there's not 67 like 67. That's crazy.
You also consider like that's not a consistent 67. People have come in and out and changed and swapped. The fucking stream. You're here watching it. Drop the fucking egos. You guys love George's content.
Yeah, bro. No comment. I'm not getting involved in this beef between you and the audience. Okay,
I got beef with the audience.
Such a case is an extreme example, proceeding unchecked to its logical conclusion. Other issues are possible, however. The resistance may be good, in which case the attack is unable to gain a foothold on the physical plane and is limited to that borderland experience between matter and mind, which we can perceive only on the threshold of sleep. That's really fucking important. This is a very terrible experience, for the victim is afraid to sleep and cannot keep awake indefinitely. Narcolepsy, worn out by fear and lack of sleep, mental breakdown soon supervenes. Nervous exhaustion and mental breakdown are the commoner results of astral attack among white people. For in Europe, at any rate, it is not often that the attacker is able to bring the attack to a conclusion in the death of the victim. There are, however, recorded cases where the victim has died of pure fright. Kipling's terrible story, The End of the Passage, gives us an account of one such experience. Guys, this is super important, okay? As white people, most of you, I imagine, as Europeans, yeah, chances are your atheist shields are up so strong that people probably can't kill you through psychic attack, but they can wear you down over a period of time where you do something like kill yourself, right? You want to be really, really careful about, but she's innately tapping into something, some red pills about race and intuition here, which I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of too much, but she's also breaking open a concept of like threshold space, liminal space, twilight space, the hours, the minutes really between waking and sleeping. Hypnagogic, hypnopompic states are where you can do the most crazy stuff in terms of magic, astral projection, you know, building up psychic barriers, attacking people psychically. Go ahead, guys.
Well, I like to make things very personal and applicable. So like, my experience with like visiting Europe and meeting European people are like kind of venerate depression. I don't know why European people like they venerate being detached.
Yeah, they do, and they have done for a while, and even in her time that was very prevalent. And I think whilst they are like, you know, among the most creative, the highest intuition people on the planet, they're also very susceptible to belief systems. So for example, you know, when Christianity took hold in Europe, it really fucking took hold, and now atheism is the mainstream. It's really taken hold, and most people have an extremely atheist, cynical, materialist worldview, where if they woke up in the middle of the night and there was a literal Baphomet demon sitting at the edge of their bed telling them about the future predictions of shit that was going to happen tomorrow, and they woke up the next day and the shit that was predicted actually happened, they would go to a psychiatrist. And they would say, medicate me so that I don't have to, like, really, that's the world we're living in. Like, we just have to be honest about that. That's a belief system. That is a materialist, atheistic belief system.
What I view it as is it's like, oh, I was just following orders kind of psychology. Like, yeah, I did the Crusades. I killed all those people and I was just following orders. It's weirdly like morally virtue signaling without like wanting accountability for it.
No, I totally get what you mean.
Interacting with German people has like, I fucking hate Germans.
You've seen how
no. What I think you're talking about is sort of using like rationality to justify what are ultimately libidinal impulses.
That's valid. That's valid as fuck. What Dio just said.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Germans, man, they're a unique case because, like, you want to talk about magical warfare and psychological warfare and like what it means to suppress a people, to keep them down. You need to look at the psychological operations that have been done.
It's just so weird how inverted it is, though, because these
German men literally piss sitting down. Like they literally, they're so cucked from having lost that war. It's crazy, the psychology of the German male. And that's why, by the way, you see so many German autistic Cancerian chuds. Like this is like a phenomenon that is real. Like
it's not the topic of the stream per se, but like that, like I don't give a fuck about semantics. Like what is modernly interpreted as stoicism has been put on these people, and that detachment has allowed you to be vampirized.
Couldn't agree more. And they think they're so like that's what I'm saying. The people who most think they can spot a psyop are so easily psyop. All I have to do to the base dissident right, alt-right, is tell them somebody is Jewish, and I control their minds. Like I can puppet them down the garden path of like I can tell, because I know all your weak points, I know all your touch points, I know I can get you to think certain thoughts. It's terrible. Like your ideology makes you susceptible to psychic attack, but that is something very different.
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier.
What it is is
Leo has Mercury in Aries, by the way, for anyone listening. He can't help it. Like it's not his fault.
I'm a Mercury Gemini king. But basically, like what it is it's like the stoic European warrior grinding and hustling and feeding his family. Like, you hate your fucking life, just experience it.
Yeah, easier said than done. Easier said than done. You know, people
You
have a
hate your
harder
fucking
load.
lives. You're a German man. You piss sitting down. You hate life. Go through those motions and you could resolve it, rather than pretending you don't care as a reaction.
For real. But in addition to the purely subjective phenomena, there will also be objective ones if the attack has any degree of concentration. The phenomena of repercussion is well known, the phenomena wherein that which befalls the subtle body is reflected in the dense body, so that after an astral skirmish during sleep, bruises are found on the physical body, sometimes bruises of a definitive person. I have seen the print of a goat's hoof and the ace of clubs marked upon the skin as well-defined bruises, passing from yellow to blue and then dying away in the course of a few days, as bruises will. Evil odors are another manifestation of an astral attack. The characteristic smells of decomposing flesh and comes and goes capriciously. But while it is manifesting, there is no doubt whatever about it, and anyone who is present can smell it, whether they are psychic or not. I have also known a frightful stench of drains arise when a ritual belonging to the element of earth was incorrectly performed. Another curious phenomenon is the precipitation of slime. I've not actually seen this myself, but I have first-hand information upon good authority of one such case. Marks are sometimes as if an army of slugs had been marching in an ordered formation. Sometimes there is a broad smear of slime, and in others distinct footprints, often of gigantic size. In the case to which I refer, of which I heard from an eyewitness, the marks were like footprints of an elephant, enormous tracks on the floor of the drawing room of a bungalow situated near the sea. Odd footprints appearing from nowhere and leading to nowhere are sometimes observed when there is snow about, and I have seen them on 2 occasions on the roof of an outbuilding. They alighted upon the edge as if the walker had stepped off an aeroplane, went straight across, and ended abruptly at the wall of the main building, to which the lean-to abuts. But they did not return. A single line of footprints came from nowhere and ended in a lofty wall. A similar happening took place on a very extensive scale in Devon some 50 years ago, and an account of this is to be found in a very curious book, Oddities, by Commander Gould. In this case, however, the prints were not human, but were those of what was apparently the hoof of a donkey, proceeding in a single line and going straight through the walls, over roofs and coverings, the best part of a couple 100 miles in a single night on both sides of an unabridged estuary. Those who want confirmatory evidence would do well to consult Commander Gould's book, where the evidence is given in detail.
Now more animal symbolism. More Warrior here referenced how horses are very cowardly. Donkeys are like one of the most psychically like fucking prominent animals. They're so stubborn, and they're like donkeys like warrior caste animal. I know it's like people equate them to peasants, but bro, donkeys one of my spirit animals. I love donkeys.
I'm very donkey pilled myself, actually.
You need to look into the totemic nature of things. And why a donkey?
Yeah, I always love the idea that Set. We talked about it before, right? How Set is not one thing or the other, but the closest approximation is a donkey. I really like that. Like, he's not an odd, he's like an aardvark slash donkey.
Like donkeys, as opposed to most horses, they don't flee, they fight instinctively.
Yeah.
Right? They bubble. If they get attacked, the horses will flee except for stallions, right? So when you see a horse like go back on their hind legs and box, that's a stallion only move, and that's kind of their instinct. So like the entire herd will go forward, and then the stallion will stay behind and box whatever the threat is, right? Whereas when you look at like females or like non-dominant males, they only kick with their back feet. They don't box, right? Whereas donkeys, they will go straight they'll go straight and bite, right? So in some places they will use donkeys instead of guard dogs because
So Coco brought up the point like, oh, donkeys aren't fearful. No, donkeys are extremely fearful animals. They're just fighters. They just fight.
Fight or flight. Yeah, they're just 2 responses to fear, actually. If you think about it.
And
if you weren't scared, you wouldn't do anything.
One example, right?
Revolutionary animals.
Is that for example, this isn't always the case, but in some donkeys, actually, like they will, when you whip them, they will move towards the whip because their reaction is to fight the attack, right, rather than flee away from it. So some of the more aggressive
anybody
ones
who's visited at the end of the stream by like a donkey-faced ethereal figure, please do let me know in the comment. Okay. It's kind of fucking fascinating to see how rife occultism was at the time, right? Like turn of the century Victorian times, there's people just writing books, like credible people and the kind of people she was hanging around with. It's kind of just funny. To me, it was not considered. I mean, today we have like parapsychology, and I guess you get guys like Jason Giorgiani who will occasionally talk about this stuff. But most of it just ends up being about UFO slop. Like, you know what I mean? It's not.
Well, the reason why it's slop, Jord, is because it's like we've entered into the era of the autist, right? Into the worship of the autist. Which, like, and someone was mentioning in chat right before that, you know, autists are immune to propaganda, but they're the most of them are furries or transsexuals, right?
Exactly, it's complete nonsense. This idea that like, I'm the based autist who knows the truth about reality. It's like, no, you have a reality.
No, like autism is a form of mental retardation, right? And the fact that like they're in denial of it is sort of a sign of the age of Aquarius we're entering in, right? The
Autism,
age of
ADHD, tuning out, and transhumanism. Yeah, it's
I'm curious for all the people in the chat. When's the last time you've looked someone in the eye and just said "fuck you" to them?
Okay, moving on.
No, like actually, like when's the last time?
I agree. No, listen, I agree. But yeah, you're trying
it's a countermeasure to fucking vampirism. Jordan, I love the King Solomon symbolism. I love it.
So do I. Particularly the ring. Okay, there is a curious phenomena known to occultists as the astral bell. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle makes use of it in one of his Sherlock Holmes stories. This sound varies from a dear bell-like note to a faint click. I've often heard it resemble the sound made by striking a cracked wine glass with a knife blade. It commonly announces the advent of an entity that is barely able to manifest and need not necessarily be a herald of evil at all. It may simply be a knock on the door of the physical world to attract the attention of the inhabitants to the presence of one who stands without and would speak with them. If, however, it occurs in the presence of other symptoms of an astral attack, it would give strong information in confirmation of the diagnosis. Inexplicable outbreaks of fire are also sometimes seen in this connection. These indicate the elemental forces, not human, that are at work. Poltergeist phenomena also occur, in which objects are flung around, bells rung, and other noisy manifestations take place. Of course, there may be multiplicity of phenomena, more than one type appearing in the same case. Needless to say, the possibility of some natural material explanation must never be ignored. Even in cases where the supernatural elements appear to be most obvious, it should always be diligently sought in every possible direction before any supernormal hypothesis is considered worthy of attention. But, on the other hand, we should not be so wedded to materialistic theories that we refuse to take a psychic theory as a working hypothesis if it shows any possibility of being fruitful. After all, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and if, working on an occult hypothesis, we are able to clear up a case which has resisted all other methods of handling, we have pretty good evidence in support of our contention. We must also bear in mind that the elements of the deliberate fraud may enter into the most unexpected places. I have seen a drug addict successfully pass himself off for a considerable length of time as a victim of an occult attack. A recent writer in the British Medical Journal declared that whenever he came across a case of a bell ringing, knocks, the dripping of water and oil from a ceiling, and other untoward happenings, he always looked for the hysterical maidservant. Occultists would be very well advised to do likewise before they begin to worry about the devil. But on the other hand, the wise man, whether occultist or scientist, will not insist upon the hysterical maidservant unless he can catch her red-handed, as he surely will do sooner or later if she really is the guilty party. I love this, by the way. Because everyone says to me, like, "Oh, I don't really get what you believe, George. Like you seem to approach everything from a materialistic lens, but then you talk about all this spiritual stuff, and it's like, now do you see that just because you believe in this like spiritual stuff, you should discount science? Science is the best tool we have for making sense of this crazy unpredictable world. It's not faultless at all. There are many problems with it. It's become an echo chamber, scientism, etc. But like, I don't know what it is that people just throw science out with. I think you know what I think it is. It's this like Christian thing of like science is Jewish, like science is. I think honestly, I think that's what it is. I think it's like.
Well, let me display some quantum physics right now. Anyone trying to curse the stream, this can represents your fucking curse. Okay.
Well,
suck my can penis. Suck my can penis.
We're gonna have to be doing so much protection work now on this stream just to boost the stream.
No, but the problem with science is kind of the same problem as with religion that has happened in the last like 200 years. Is that like so many people have gotten into it that basically they've been filled with junk, and now it's gonna take like the next 200 years. We're not going to invent anything. We're just going to spend it like sorting out like what is bullshit and what is actually real in science.
And I think
the occult and all these things.
From this decade, like in 100 years, we're going to look back at the science from this decade and be like, whoa, they were all just confirmation bias maxing and approving stuff because of diversity and because the author was a black woman or whatever. Like it's going to be crazy when we realize how much bad science we've done in the last decades, really, couple decades.
Well, like George, one good example is like the mouse utopia. Because when people often like to bring up the mouse utopia, but what no one brings up is that the experiment was run 36 times, and we only have the result for one of them.
Oh, that's crazy!
What if they
did he only published one of them? He only published one of the experiments, but like he ran either 33 or 30.
They did it 35 times and didn't get the results that he wanted. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
And on top of that, right, like the mouse utopia doesn't like have emigration or immigration. Right, which is something that you have in real life, so that's something like that changes.
Yeah, they should have got a bunch of rats in like a connected system and started piping them in, and then that would have really fucked with the thing. We could have seen we could have seen a more realistic dystopia.
Right. No, but but for example, that's an experiment that we sort of take as granted and true, and that we use as like a lens to analyze, a lot of issues we have in society today. When I mean, in a big way, it's junk science. And so you see that everywhere.
Stuff like that people treat as empirical should be taken as heuristics. And when you wake up and there's a devil goat head man standing in the corner of the room, that should not be treated as just anecdotal. That should be your first-hand experience of what happened. But people don't think like this. There's an appeal to consensus. There's an appeal. Yeah, you should have sex with it. There's an appeal to consensus. There's an appeal to authority. There's an appeal to the crowd, to the collective. And this is only going to get worse for reasons that we've outlined on this channel recently. But let me just keep going because she's almost finished with the thing. Forged banknotes would never gain currency unless there was such a thing as genuine banknotes. It would never occur to anyone to produce a fraudulent psychic phenomena unless there had been some genuine psychic phenomena to act as a pattern for the forgery. The acceptance of an explanation should rest upon the weight of evidence in its favor, not upon one's dislike of its alternatives. I plead that the possibility of a non-material explanation should be investigated in cases where the materialistic hypothesis does not yield results. Not in diseases of the brain and the nervous system, nor in the ductless glands, nor in the repression of the natural instincts should we find the explanation in all cases wherein the mind is afflicted. There is more to man than merely mind and body. We shall never find the clue to the riddle of life until we realize that man is a spiritual being and that mind and body are garments of his manifestation. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to think about here in this chapter in general and in this book, which I won't continue reading because we've been at this now for like coming up for 2.5 hours. I just wanted to know, last 10 minutes, if any of you guys have any thoughts on this kind of stuff, if this is someone you'd read before, if this is someone you will consider reading, what would be your general advice based on what you know for people listening to how to ward off against psychic attacks, stuff like that?
I just want to argue with your chat.
Okay, you can you go at the end and you can get off your chest all the shit you have to say against the people in the chat.
Well, it's funny, speaking of that, Noam, like in my experience, like the best way to sort of fight off psychic attack is that whenever like sort of any entity enters your circle, you set it on fire. Right, and I don't know, Mercury in Aries. What can I say, right? And
you sodomized it.
Well, basically, you can sodomize it, and I can set it on fire, right? But at the end of the day, like it's the same idea. It's we're essentially expanding the circle, and we're turning the agent of the curse into like a character inside our own head, which is subject to our imagination and our whims at the end of the day.
Well, I just want to say, like, Jordan, I'm hating the energy from your chat. You're talking about this, and like they're presenting like it's defense, like they want to learn defense, but these people are being offensive to you and your stream. You know that, right?
I don't read it, dude. I'm not like this is something I don't open myself up to like psychic attack from people. I don't even know what particular comments you're referring to. I just like have the.
It's just the energy. Like these people, they all want to interject without interjecting. MAGA Baptist, I would do whatever the fuck I want to you physically, spiritually. I'm above you, soulfully I'm above you. I would beat the dog shit out of you. Like you're just a worm. Baptist MAGA, you're a worm, and right now you're sitting there with a little smirk. But your emotions exist. So you're boxing yourself in at my offense. And Baptist MAGA, like I would literally I would sodomize you without your consent. You're a worm. You're a little worm boy.
Man.
You have your own insecurities. And I would cum shot your mother in front of you. And you would sit in the corner jerking off to my presence as I do that.
He's just like this. All right, you guys can take this war.
Dude, I will say that he has been here before, and like he's always kind of hated a bit. He's always been a bit of a hater, and yet this is like months later since the first time I saw him. You know,
it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
No, dude,
George. This guy sits here watching your fucking stream.
Dude, like he could hop on. You put the link in the chat. He can defend his beliefs.
I'll put the link in the chat again, but you got to understand that a lot of people watch these streams for different reasons. I can't control who comes in and who watches the stream, right? I have the audience that I have, and it is changing over time. Like for example, there are a lot of cool people coming into the Black Lodge now who definitely wouldn't have like joined any group chats I was involved in a couple of years ago. We got like Iona in there, people teaching like real astrology and stuff at school. I don't have anything against these guys in general and the way you guys do. Like it's like catharsis for them. Like a lot of people are here for knowledge and they want to learn and they're like interested in research. And some people are here for more just to like blow off steam, let off steam. Like some, you know, like it's not. I understand it. I don't necessarily like want an audience like that. I'm trying to do things to move away from. I think your audience is a reflection of you, though, right? And there's been times where I've been very chudded in the past. And therefore, I must have attracted some fucking chuds. Like I was here with
a Baptist MAGA. If you're depressed and you want to talk to George, just say that.
Yeah, you could just come in the Black Lodge and talk to me. I'm like very available all the time. I like try to be anyway.
And I also just sorry, but I wanted to say based and kind of Libra pilled Dion's last paragraph or whatever. It's like you can look at both sides, right? You can. Look at the materialist explanation until it stops making sense, and then, well, there's other theories, right?
Hey, like, George, I don't want to like. I'm trying to. I'm still up on your fucking chat right now, bro. Wait. The living dream. Stop being so insecure, Gnome, dude. Hey, maybe you should be more insecure. Maybe you should be more mad at the people in your life. Hey, the living dream. Your family fucking sucks. Your people around you fucking suck, and you want to know why that is? Because you never checked them and expressed yourself. You never expressed yourself to the people around you because you're scared of reacting. Hey, you're a human being. I'm a human being. The difference is you're depressed and you don't face it. You're not better for that. You're more fearful for that. You're a coward for that. You are a coward for that.
Does anybody want to add anything else before we wrap up the stream? For that, I'll say this, okay? I'll say this. If we can try and not get distracted by the chat for the rest of it, that would be good.
Hey, fuck this chat. Hey,
chat. Yeah, listen.
Chat. This is your tight little asshole, and this is me sodomizing you as you try to assert yourselves.
There goes my monetization. All right, listen.
Okay. Hey, wait. What's wrong with homosexuality?
Nothing. I love it. I think it's great. I want more of it. If anything, gay flags everywhere. That's what I think. The main tools that Dion Fortune suggests in this book, for those of you who I know don't have the fortitude to actually go away and read it, she suggests doing something called the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, the ritual of the middle pillar, a ritual called the Kabbalistic cross. What else did I have in my notes? Oh, she recommends speaking divine names. She recommends, as Gnome did earlier, using talismanic objects, charging them and leaving them around your house. Holly is the most protective plant in the world. Nothing stopping you putting a holly wreath above your door this Christmas and leaving it there all year. Not on the door like a Christmas one, above the door frames, door ledges, windows, places like that. And to do regular banishing rituals, which she outlines in the book. You're basically most vulnerable to psychic attack when you're at your weakest, when you're at your lowest, when you're at your most depressed, when you're at your most vulnerable. This book is one of the best things you can read to safeguard against it. And whilst it is very esoteric and very trippy and talks about things like ectoplasm, if you take the techniques in it and you apply them to just your everyday social media life, you'll become a lot more fortified against fuckery when it comes to people trying to influence you and incept ideas into your mind. Let me let Julian in here for a second. Any final thoughts on this, on the unfortunate psychic self-defense in general, or no? Even if you really want to, you can.
Well, what Julian
You do divine names based, right? Mantras based, talismans based. But we have to mention. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Hector. You're saying
trying to lecture me on like reactionary.
No, wait, 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Go ahead, Hector. What you saying?
We totally forgot to mention something very important, right? And that is the Bene Gesserits, or the Bene Gesserits, or whatever, from the Dune novels.
Like, holy shit! Imagine calling into a fucking live stream and just cooking like with your mic on. Okay, holy shit! These people just. Sorry, Hector.
But right. That's the whole thing, right? This order of witches who learn how to monitor every movement, every little tell of psychology in order to weaponize that against you, right? In the Dune novels.
Yep. They're actually a coven of witches who are into eugenics, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yep.
And what's not talked enough about them is the Missionaria Protectiva, right? Well, they were incept and create false religions in order to mind control different ethnic groups, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And that's how Paul establishes his power, right? By using his secret knowledge of an incepted religion that is given to the Fremen, and that like allows them to set him up as their prophet, you know? So it's really this idea that like you can use religion and you can use ideas like as spells and incept people with certain ideas to make them act as your puppets. And people should be mindful of that, right? Like, why do you believe what you believe? And like, are you being someone else's useful idiot, you know, at the end of the day?
Completely. I couldn't agree
to be
more.
mindful of.
That's fundamentally why I did this stream and why I recommend reading this book. Guys, I'm going to love you and leave you because it's painful or whatever. Julian, I can't believe no one was right earlier. I could have rewound and answered my own question, but I didn't ask. I had no idea. So real and true. We really appreciate the humility there from Migrating Coconut. Holy shit. No,
Migrating Coconut.
Guys, if you've attacked Gnome, just be wary when you start seeing shadow figures in the room tonight. That's on you.
Migrating Coconut, like on a soulful, spiritual level, I love you. I actually mean that. Like, I'm a loving, sensitive young man, and carry that. I love you. I love you, and I want you to do well. Like, I actually mean that. For the rest of you degenerates in chat, fundamentally, I do love you, but your egos are just like, they're pathetic. To be honest with you, to analyze, they're pathetic. They get in your ways. They don't protect you. You're not using them to protect you. You're using them as a reactive tool to convince yourself that you're not a reactionary. You are reacting to everything. You are reacting to all stimuli around you. Now, you're depressed, and that's actually the exhaustion of the nervous system, the rejection of it. Draw your circles consciously.
Laters, guys. Have a good evening.